with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Thursday, June 5th, 2025. My name is Emma Vigeland, in for Sam Seder, and this is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Trita Parsi of the Quincy Institute joins us to discuss Trump's negotiations with Iran. Also on the program, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez endorses Zohran Mamdani in the New York City mayoral race and says to rank him first. This is very good news. Trump implements travel bans on several African and Middle Eastern countries, including Afghanistan. A federal judge, Boasberg again, finds that the CCOT detainees need to be given due process by the administration, setting up another Supreme Court battle. By the way, Kilmar Abrego Garcia and they're still there. ICE detained more than 2,200 people on Tuesday, a single-day record, taking many of them from their scheduled immigration appointments, which appears to be a practice now. The U.S. vetoes the UN Security Council's Gaza ceasefire resolution for the, I don't know, how many times have they done it? Trump gets his turn now. The only of the 15 countries to vote no. Wall Street braces for a dismal jobs report on Friday as a private one finds that private job creation is hitting its lowest level in more than 2 years. Didn't they want a weaker labor market? Yeah. It seems, I don't know. Putting all these private sector people out and out of work, or public sector people out of work, it's just interesting to me. Trump and Elon Musk face off over the big, beautiful bill as news of their rift gets a bit louder. But there's one Democrat who thinks we should reach out to Musk and bring him back into the party. And by some, I mean Representative Ro Khanna of Silicon Valley. Can we bring back snake emojis? Is that done?
Didn't work for me to imply that Elon was the type of criminal that Truman would have investigated on the Truman Committee when Roe was on Left Reckoning.
He didn't. I guess he didn't take that to heart.
Didn't really. Kind of just slid over.
Money talks.
Water off a duck's back.
Yep. Trump ramps up his war on Columbia and Harvard. He used the new authority to block international students from Harvard. And says Columbia failed to meet accreditation requirements to protect Jewish students. Glad they threw all their students under the bus, right? Look at why they got them. Texas revokes undocumented students' ability to receive in-state tuition. The Bureau of Labor Statistics will cut back on its collection of data on consumer prices. You know, if we don't tabulate that prices are increasing, it doesn't exist. That's the Trump COVID model of imposing ignorance upon yourself. And lastly, yet another former Republican is running as a Democrat for governor in Florida. How many times are we going to do this? All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's an M Majority Report Thursday. Hello to Russ. Hello to Matt. Hello to you. We start off today. It sounds like maybe, you know, like I know we have an audience all across the country and in many other countries too. But I was just talking to somebody last night about how many people outside of New York are paying attention to the mayoral race because It's really the first election since Donald Trump won the second time around that we have a true left-wing person who has a shot, maybe more than a shot. Because at 5 a.m. this morning, right before, I should say, the morning shows hit the air and they're going to be covering all the highlights of the debate, it was published in the New York Times that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says to rank Zohran Mamdani number 1. She also, I was thinking of ranking Adrienne Adams second, and she's doing that, which was a bit surprising given how much Brad Lander has coveted her endorsement. He said,
I'll just own it that I thought she was waffling between wanting to endorse Lander and feeling pressured to endorse Zohran, and I was wrong.
She was timing it, right? Like, there's this paragraph here that I think is really telling. Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, this is further down, you may have to search. Ms. Ocasio-Cortez and her aides spent weeks studying the race. They asked candidates to submit polling and opposition and strategy memos to make the case for their viability. She has faced criticism for not weighing in sooner, but a person familiar with her thinking said she had long planned for her announcement to coincide with the final weeks of the race when many voters are just tuning in. And then, Adams and Lander are disappointed. But this was the strategy that we'd been kind of saying was more likely because she has the name recognition that would appeal to low propensity voters who the impact of the endorsement being closer to when voting starts is greater because that's when they're more likely to be tuning in. A lot of people who are really engaged in politics are really engaged in the Zohran Mamdani campaign. You have to get those other voters. So I found it to be pretty expertly done. And speaking of expertly done, last night, Zohran Mamdani destroyed Cuomo in the debate, but it wasn't even just him. Cuomo looked like he didn't prepare. He came out there with like an Israeli flag pin or a hostage pin that you could see from space. And I shouldn't even call it that because, although this guy, can we put this on the screen really quickly? This guy who, I don't know what his polling is, but he's
Whitney Tilson.
Whitney Tilson, was like, couldn't find the hostage yellow ribbon pin big enough on Amazon. So he had to make one himself.
This is just lunacy.
I know. It's just obvious what they're doing.
It's disgusting.
It's not about the hostages. This is about using the hostages as a propaganda piece to continue the genocide. So we all want the hostages back.
The people who lead Israel's war machine are very clear that the hostages are actually an impediment to fighting the war,
which is their number one priority.
And it'd be nice. I mean, even like Haaretz, notices that. It'd be nice if our political establishment could, embrace reality at a certain point, particularly on the Democratic primary side of things.
The good news is that it was mostly Mr. Whitney who we'll play it, actually. I'll laugh about it. He thinks he could have convinced Biden. It seems like maybe to drop out sooner. Some main character energy coming from that guy. But,
I mean, where were you?
Yeah.
Like, it's not like you were 18 when that was happening.
It's so silly. But Cuomo just, it feels like he's running a campaign based on name recognition. He's running a lazy campaign that wants people to have as little information about him and about other candidates as possible because that's how corrupt Democrats win in very safe blue areas in primaries. Speaking of AOC, that's how Joe Crowley kept winning with incredibly low turnout in her district. And she had a great ground game that got people out. And then she won that surprise victory despite being down by double digits in the polling leading up to that day. And I see very similar, strong tactical thinking from the Zohran Mamdani campaign. And it's not just his great ads, as Cuomo was mocking him over last night. It's also the strategy and how he's run a campaign based on small dollars and matching funds. And Cuomo has not. This was one of my favorite moments of the debate last night where Cuomo is asked, or maybe Mamdani brings it up here, but about the $1 million that he received from DoorDash. For those who don't know, DoorDash in a few years ago had to settle for nearly $17 million with the city of New York. Letitia James led this case and found that from 2017 to 2019, DoorDash was stealing the tips that New Yorkers thought that they were giving to the drivers. We know when you when you tip at the end of when you get an order from DoorDash.
Oh, I always knew I was tipping the people who invested in the company.
Right. They were taking that and not obviously telling the consumers who were thinking they were tipping their driver. They were taking that money and using it to subsidize the minimum wage that they were already paying them. So like, say you get the driver gets $15 for an order and somebody tips $2, that $2 would go back into the 15. So they wouldn't be making any extra money. They were stealing from their workers. And I give you that context to show how Cuomo reacted when that $1 million donation was brought up.
Corrupt Cuomo.
And let's remind you guys that these are the people taking, most of them, your food to your offices and your homes. Mr. Mandan.
You know, I find it ridiculous to hear Andrew Cuomo talk about how we need to regulate the apps when this is the very mayoral candidate who has a super PAC that received $1 million from DoorDash. How are you going to regulate DoorDash when they are giving you $1 million to influence your street safety regulations and your labor regulations? This model, this economic model, is one that doesn't just incentivize e-bike riders to break street safety laws. It often requires
Thank you,
them
Mr.
to do so to make the
Mr. Cuomo, do you want to respond to that?
Yes. I work for the people of the state of New York, the people of the city of New York. I don't care who gave me what. I do what is right. And that's how I.
But you don't feel compromised?
That's how I've always run my.
But don't you feel
career.
compromised?
I just said the apps should be held responsible. They are the ones who should have to license the bike, register the bike. They should be responsible for the fees. They're the ones who are making the money.
Thank you, Mr.
And in terms of
should hold them
who represents who,
Thank you very much. We have to go to Mr. Blake.
Mr. Blake, just want to make sure we internalize that Andrew Cuomo just said, I don't care who gave me what. That's not a man who's actually going to break the corruption in City Hall. You need a new vision right here. To your question around e-bikes.
That guy, Michael Blake, was the kind of dark horse star to come out of this. I guess he had previously primaried Richie Torres in New York 15. I don't know what his politics are more broadly. I'd have to look into it, but he sounded pretty good last night. And if Jamal Bowman doesn't move over a district, I'm interested in this candidate maybe taking on Richie Torres. But yeah, that's Cuomo just phoning it in like, yeah, I don't care.
The apps should be held responsible by whom?
Yeah.
The guy taking money from the apps
right.
to give them cutouts?
Right. I mean, and it was like a record-breaking amount being spent by a corporation in a mayoral race, I think. I would have to look up what record that was breaking. But it's so clear. Cuomo has a history and had a history in Albany of corruption investigations into his top aides and into him. And then this is just on another level. That was one great moment. This is probably my favorite. This is a longer exchange when every candidate was asked about their biggest regret towards the end of the first hour of the debate. And to give you some context, Andrew Cuomo, Letitia James, the New York State Attorney General, came up with a report in 2021 and found that Cuomo, as governor, had undercounted COVID deaths in nursing homes by thousands. That was the margin to cover that up. And then she published that report. And then the health department, after that, because the New York Attorney General found this, provided data that was like, oh, actually, yeah, this is correct. Data that Cuomo had previously been covering up. And now, because of that, the Trump administration is investigating Cuomo for lying to Congress about that. Obviously, it's politically motivated from Trump's side, but that is what they're asking about here. And Cuomo doesn't, well, you'll hear what happens.
Thank you, Mr. Mamdani. Biggest regret in your years in politics?
You know, as a Democrat, one of my regrets is having trusted the leaders within our own party, leaders like Andrew Cuomo, because what we've seen is that kind of leadership has delivered us to this point where we are under attack by an affordability crisis on the inside and a Trump administration on the outside. And Democrats are tired of being told by leaders from the past that we should continue to simply wait our turn. We should continue to simply trust when we know that's the very leadership that got us to this point. We need to turn the page for new leadership to take us out.
Mr. Tilson?
Yeah, my biggest regret is that I didn't see Joe Biden's decline and call for him to resign earlier. It wasn't until after the debate that I
pause it.
became
I'm sorry.
one of the loudest voices.
We could have cut this answer out, but I just was so amused by the idea that this guy, this no-name Whitney Tilson, thought that he could just call Biden up and tell him, like, drop out of the race.
No one's saying that. No poll says that.
He looks like a ghost from Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Publicly, nationally, calling on him to step aside. But unfortunately, by then it was too late, and we handed Donald Trump the presidency.
Mr. Cuomo, your regrets in all the years you've spent in politics.
That the Democratic Party got to a point that we allowed Mr. Trump to be elected, that we've gotten to a point where rhetoric has no connection with reality, where a person who has served in government for several years, only passed 3 bills.
Okay.
Pause really quick. That's a shot at Zoran, just so you know. So he can't say a regret personally, despite the numerous scandals, the DOJ investigation, the forced resignation.
Tens of thousands of people that died in nursing homes.
Yes.
How much policy did this guy block with his whole independent
Democratic caucus? The
And
fake Democrats that were Republicans and
we
voted with them every
literally
time.
did not have legal weed in this state until he got ignominiously thrown from office for being a pervert. That's when we finally got all the stuff that he was suppressing. Yeah, kind of a weird angle of attack out
Yeah,
there.
and Adrian Adams goes at him in just a sec, but I had to point out the swipe at Zoran because that was the only guy he was really going at. And you just see why. It's a big threat. Go back like 5 seconds, yeah.
Rick has no connection with reality, where a person who has served in government for several years, only passed 3 bills, believes they have the experience and credentials to run the greatest city on the earth. And the Democratic Party seems okay with that.
Mr. Cuomo, this question, was about your personal regret in your years in politics.
I said I regret the state of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, not the question.
And that we elected Trump.
Not the 15.
No regrets when it comes to cutting Medicaid or health care. No regrets when it comes to cutting child care. No regrets when it comes to slow walking PPE and vaccinations in the season of COVID to Black and brown communities. Really? No regrets. No regrets.
We have to protect Medicare for our city's retirees.
Okay, we want everyone to be able to respond.
Retirees.
Okay, we want everyone to respond to this, Mr. Cuomo. You only have a few seconds.
Yeah, but
no, I understand, but
it's not. It is just not accurate. Medicaid went up under me. I led the nation under COVID.
Okay.
I pushed President Trump to give us everything he had.
Thank you, Mr. Cuomo. Right.
I was there every day.
You expressed it.
Leading COVID.
No regrets.
I have to ask him
All right.
Mr. Cuomo, I'm sorry. I'm sure.
That lie there, that it grew. Yeah, it would have grown more, but you cut it.
Yep.
You have a growing state, asshole.
And he was proposing it in the lead up to COVID. That it was for a responsible budget in New York State. As we're seeing the Republicans slash Medicaid across the country, Cuomo should have a bumper sticker. I did it. I took your health care first, or I tried to take your health care first.
Yeah, what month did COVID hit?
It hit probably like February. I mean, it was.
Yeah, he's still talking about
March.
it. Yeah.
March was the day basketball ended. I'll tell you one of the things that Cuomo did achieve in convincing Trump was to send that hospital ship. Do you remember? There was like a ship that was like fitted to be a hospital, and it had all these measures in place to prevent the spread of COVID. He let that ship sit there empty, and instead there was a bunch of people, elderly people, who had been tested positive for COVID, and he sent them back to the nursing homes. By the way, happens to have taken over the course of his career hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations from the nursing home industry.
Yep.
Who only gets paid when the beds are full.
Exactly.
And he let that hospital ship go away, like without ever having treated a single patient. So that maybe would have been on that list of regrets.
Should have been. Can we go through it a little bit, because then that other anchor just follows up about the many women, like the over a dozen women that have accused him repeatedly of sexual assault. 13 women. The Department of Justice, by Joe Biden's Department of Justice, found that yes, he sexually harassed 13 women. Between the period of 2013 and 2021, they called it a practice of discrimination against female employees based on how he acted. and it was repeatedly done, and it was non-consensual.
And we should just underline that you'll see the press say this is alleged. No, this was investigated.
No alleged. It's been proven.
That people at home must be wondering about your answer to this question, because we speak to voters throughout the city, and quite a few of them will say, I'm not sure exactly what happened with those sexual harassment cases. We know that you say you never sexually harassed anybody. You say you're running to restore efficient government and efficient leadership. But in the past, your leadership came with what more than one investigation concluded was a toxic work environment, especially for women. And some of those cases are still ongoing. So I just want to ask you, since we're talking about regrets, you have apologized to some of those women back when you were still governor. What do you say to voters now, looking ahead to your potential mayoralty? Are you doing anything differently? And why should they believe that that same situation won't happen again?
Yeah, Melissa, let's just make sure we have the facts. A report was done 4 years ago making certain allegations. I said at the time that it was political and it was false. 5 district attorneys, Democratic, Republican, short, tall, looked at it all across the state, found absolutely nothing. 1 case has been resolved. I was dropped from that case. I said at the time that if I offended anyone, it was unintentional, but I apologize, and I say that today.
There was also a Justice Department investigation, but we'll move on because we're out of time.
We need to address the issue raised, but we also want.
That's good. Yeah, they were basically just moving on to the next person in terms of regrets for the question. Yeah, he couldn't even come up with when you go into a job interview, you're supposed to come up with like a fake weakness. The dude couldn't even come up with, I regret that the Democrats.
I regret that you're all a bunch of losers and don't respect me enough.
Right.
I did everything right and they indicted me.
That's basically Andrew Cuomo.
He could have done also like something. He could have said, when the whole city, the state of New York was like in a crisis and thousands of people were dying, I went on my brother's news show and joked about our mother's meatballs.
Yeah.
And then sold a book praising myself as like the leader that the country needed at that moment. Maybe he should have said, I wish I would have been a little more humble.
He started with saying, I regret that, Democrats allowed Trump to get into office. His response to those investigations is exactly Trump. It is, it's political lies aimed at me because I'm such a special person.
Well, I mean, I think I've been joking calling Biden blue Trump, right? Just given his level of arrogance. But probably Cuomo, I think, takes the mantle because of his bullying, too.
And like even more naked corruption.
Exactly. How long's the Israel part? We could do that in the fun half, or we could do that now. Let's just save that.
Pretty short, but we could do it later.
Okay. We'll save it for Binder and Brandon, just because they may have some fun with it. But overall, I mean, it was just a bad night for Andrew Cuomo. I'm not sure how this turns the tide, but we see
because a lot of his support comes from people who ain't paying attention.
Exactly.
Pay attention once every 4 years.
That's what's really hard. But that's why the AOC endorsement is so significant, and hopefully she does a rally with him too at some point, bring more news attention to those very voters, because like he's got like these parts of Brooklyn locked up, right? It's more about voters who are going to just go and vote for Cuomo based on name recognition. So we shall see. But overall, we had a good night for Democratic politics here in New York. We will be talking to Trita Parsi in just a second. We spoke to him, recorded that conversation around 2 hours ago. But first, a word from our sponsors. Smalls is one of our favorite sponsors. It's one of Matt's favorite sponsors with his cats.
Yeah, I would say it's one of my cat's favorite sponsors.
Okay.
I feel like I'm spoiling them a little bit, but they can't get enough of the stuff.
Smalls is this podcast is sponsored by Smalls. It's cat food that you can feel good about. What's the name of your cat, Matt?
I don't want to give away that information.
Okay, fair enough. We'll use a code name then. But this podcast is
Marcel.
We'll say Marcel, Matt's cat, he's been saying to us off air how much they enjoy the ingredients. If your cat has some digestive issues, if they're throwing up their food,
if they're picky,
yes, they need a diet upgrade. Well, everybody's been there. You should check out our next sponsor, Smalls. This podcast is sponsored by Smalls. If you're a listener of this show, you know that Matt's cat, Sam's new cat, they can't live without Smalls. To get 50% off your first order plus free shipping, head to smalls.com and use our promo code MAJORITY. Smalls cat food is protein packed. It's made with preservative-free ingredients that you find in your fridge, and it is delivered right to your door. That's why Cats.com named Smalls their best overall food. And if you're still not a believer, New York Magazine called Smalls the best cat food according to veterinarians, while BuzzFeed said, my cats went completely ballistic for this stuff. What was it like, Matt, when you first gave Smalls to your cat?
I mean, they scream at me as I'm preparing it. You take it out of the fridge. There's a couple types. There's the pâtés, which are refrigerated, which, they feel like they're getting human food, which is maybe not the best lesson, but they get excited about that. And also, my cats, I mix dry and wet food for both of my cats. Got a tuxedo and a Russian blue, and there's a broth that you can squirt on the dry food. Again, like I spend more time preparing my cat's food than
yourself.
My own food. I just do the air fryer. But yeah, you squirt this stuff on the dry food and they go insane for it, like it's leftovers put on the ground.
And Smalls also has a bunch of amazing treats and snacks that you can add to your order. You can get snacks to supplement the food that you get for your Smalls box. And after switching to Smalls, 88% of cat owners reported overall health improvements. That is a big deal. If you have a particularly picky cat, Smalls has a sampler so your cat can try everything that Smalls has to offer. And the team at Smalls is so confident your cat will love their product, you can try it risk-free. That means they will refund you if your cat won't eat their food. So what are you waiting for? Give your cat the food that they deserve. Head to smalls.com and use promo code MAJORITY at checkout for 50% off your first order plus free shipping. That's the best offer you'll find, but you have to use our code MAJORITY for 50% off your first order. One last time, that's promo code MAJORITY for 50% off your first order plus free shipping. In the show notes below, we will have the link to this. 50% off your first order. Head to smalls.com and use code MAJORITY. And lastly, Delete Me is a service that I started using before I even joined the Majority Report. And then when I found out they were a sponsor, I was like, nice, because I can speak to how effective and how great Delete Me is. It just takes so much stuff off my mind. It makes it quick, easy, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time where surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone vulnerable. And then obviously I talk about politics on the internet, so I got to be buttoned up with this kind of thing. Well, Delete Me does all the hard work of wiping you and your family's personal information from data broker websites. Delete Me knows that your privacy is worth protecting. Sign up and provide Delete Me with exactly what information you want deleted, and their experts take it from there. We want to thank Delete Me for sponsoring today's episode. With Delete Me, I protect both my personal privacy and the privacy of our business here. As someone with an active online presence, privacy is really important to me, and Delete Me is just super easy. I don't have to think about it. I signed up years ago, and it's still working. I check on it occasionally. It gives you little reports about what data it's culled, but it's just important because I don't know, over the next 3.5 years, it's very unlikely we're going to get some big tech rein in on these kinds of scams. So protect yourself. It's important. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount to you, get 20% off your Delete Me plan by texting Majority to 64,000. The only way to get 20% off is to text Majority to 64,000. That's Majority to 64000. Message and data rates may apply. Again, we will put this in the descriptions down below. If you text Majority to 64,000, 64000, you get 20% off your Delete Me subscription. All right, quick break, and when we come back, you'll hear our conversation with Trita Parsi. We are back, and we are joined now by Trita Parsi, Executive Vice President of the Quincy Institute, author of 4 books on U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East with a focus on Iran and Israel. Trita, welcome back to the show. It's always great to have you.
Thanks so much for having me.
So the Trump administration has been engaging in talks with Iran since, I guess, around March or April at this point. Iran has initially expressed some skepticism, obviously, because Trump withdrew from the Obama-negotiated Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA, in 2018. But now that we are in the present, well, before we get to the present, can you take us through that history of what the JCPOA was, then Trump withdrawing from it, and where that takes us right now?
Sure. So, the Obama administration, together with Russia, China, France, Germany, and the UK, it was a different era then because, all of these countries apparently could work well together back then, negotiated this deal that was really historic, imposed significant restrictions on the Iranian nuclear program. They had to ship out 98% of their enriched uranium. They went down from 22,000 centrifuges to only 5,000. They could only have 300 kilos of low-enriched uranium on their soil at any time. You need 1,200 kilos in order to build a bomb. They had the most intrusive inspections with the IAEA being inside of the Iranian program at every different level with instruments. So we're not talking about, dudes running around with blue helmets and, checking things. They actually have instruments inside the program that would measure things, send it remotely to the IAEA, so the IAEA would detect any discrepancies right away, essentially. And Trump pulled out of that deal, and he pulled out of that deal because he, wanted to destroy Obama's legacy, but he also, at the same time, wanted a different deal. He wanted a deal. He was not an entire neocon who was just against deals. At the end of the day, Trump seems to want to deal with almost anyone. But he was sold a strategy by Bolton and Pompeo that was based on the idea that you pull out of the deal, you impose maximum pressure sanctions, you force the Iranians to come begging for a new deal. And by that, you have killed 2 birds with a stone. You got rid of Obama's legacy and you got a better deal. Now, Bolton and Pompeo, of course, knew that maximum pressure strategy and zero enrichment objectives, which was part of the strategy, would lead not to a new deal, but to further deterioration, further escalation, and eventually to war. And that's exactly what they wanted. Trump, I think, fell for it because coming from his Manhattan real estate world, it kind of made sense. Instead of renegotiating the deal from inside, you just pull out, you really pressure the other side, and they'll come back and want a different deal that is better for you. Doesn't work that way with with nation states, and it doesn't work that way with states on issues that they view to be pivotal to their national security. So.
Yeah. Could we just pause for a second, Trita, to just expand on that? So that was essentially a neocon poison pill by Bolton and Pompeo, which is notable because it appears to be a very similar dynamic now with Marco Rubio likely, and this maybe was a part of the Mike Waltz firing too, trying to do the same thing, manipulate Donald Trump into a more hawkish position in order to basically make the negotiations with Iran break apart.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think it very much had to do something with Michael Waltz being fired. In fact, the first person that was fired that was pushing this was Brian Hook. He was fired on day 1. But Waltz was still there, and they managed to get Trump to sign a presidential memorandum on February 4th that actually reinstated maximum pressure, talked about zero enrichment, etc. And that was, a shock. And, when Trump signed it, he even said that he didn't want to sign it, didn't kind of believe in it, but that he actually wanted a deal. So it was clear that that struggle was still going on, but he nevertheless signed it. And that created some problems. But eventually the 2 sides came to the table because the letter that Trump eventually sent to the Iranian supreme leader must have contained something that gave the Iranians the belief that there was value in talks. And in the beginning, the U.S. side was actually very constructive, was not looking for zero enrichment. But after an interview in which Witkoff mentioned that the deal would be based on restrictions. The Iranians would have enrichment at 3.67%. The hardliners in Washington, the Friends of Israel in Washington, as well as the Israelis, started to directly attack Witkoff. And they pointed out that the JCPOA also limited the nuclear enrichment to 3.67%. And they said that this is essentially the same deal as Obama's deal. And that was an argument that seemed to have gone, under the skin of Trump. The difference, of course, is at the end of the day, of course, there's some similarities because we're still living in the same universe with the same laws of physics.
Yep.
You're not going to have limitation to their program that allows them to do civilian nuclear production that doesn't go up to 3.67%. But distant through, the talks off, and then suddenly you started seeing that Witkoff started talking about zero enrichment. Marco Rubio did very much so. Trump just did it a couple of days ago, and now they're at an impasse. Because at the end of the day, the Iranians will not compromise on this issue. This is something that the U.S. has tried for more than 25 years. And every time we tried, the end result is that we didn't get a deal, which meant that the Iranian program grew further. And when we managed to get restrictions, we had delayed those restrictions because we spent so much time banging our heads against the wall in the pursuit of this fantasy, which at the end of the day was a poison pill that Pompeo and Bolton put in there because they knew it wouldn't work. It would cause the collapse of talks, and it would bring the U.S. and Iran towards war. And incidentally, twice under Trump, Iran and the U.S. were at the brink of war. And as you remember, at one point, Trump had ordered attacks on Iran. Last minute, he changed his mind and said that he doesn't want to do it. Bolton had left the office before Trump changed his mind, and he was super happy. He was at home when he found out that Trump had changed his mind and there would not be an attack. And he wrote in his book that he was devastated by the fact that Trump didn't attack. So it tells you very clearly.
This is John Bolton's North Star is going to war with Iran, which, maybe Trita, for people that don't know, can you give people context as to how much larger, say, Iran is than Iraq, how much more capable they would be in terms of fighting us? This would be the kind of war that would devastate not just Iran, obviously, and the entire region, but this country here at home.
This is a country that is, 3 times the size of Iraq, a population of 85 million people, major army, obviously weakened in the region because of what happened to Hezbollah and the fall of Assad, undoubtedly. But on the other hand, also shown that its actual deterrence capabilities primarily based on its missile capabilities. And despite the official narrative in Washington, which is that Iran's attacks against Israel back in 2024 were unsuccessful, behind the scenes, the Pentagon talks about a completely different story. The attack on October 1st, you saw a large number of these Iranian missiles penetrate all layers of Israel's air defenses and hitting their targets. And that means that they went through the Arrows, the Patriots, the David Sling, the Iron Dome. And as a result, the Israelis asked for the U.S. to deploy THAAD air defense systems in Israel, which means that the U.S. not only put the stuff there, but also put roughly 100 American soldiers there to operate them. They wouldn't have asked for that if the Iranian attack had not been effective. And the Pentagon, incidentally, upgraded or revised upwards their casualty estimation in case there would be a war between the U.S. and Iran after that October attack. I would presume that they did so even more after a single Houthi missile provided to them by the Iranians. So this was not a barrage of 30 or 100 missiles in which a few of them went through. A single missile went through and hit Ben Gurion Airport. And that one also then breached the THAAD defense system. So the first time our THAAD system went up against one of these missiles, it failed. So I think we're in a situation in which it's very clear this war would be a complete disaster. Incidentally, take a look at what Tucker Carlson tweeted yesterday about this, who is channeling the anti-war sentiments of the Trump base, which he makes it very clear, not only that this war would be a disaster, of all the negatives that would come from it, but also he goes to the core of this issue and says that the enrichment issue is essentially a poison pill and Trump should drop it. At a very sensitive time in the negotiation, he comes out not just with a generic anti-war message, but a specific demand for enrichment to be dropped, zero enrichment to be dropped.
It's been interesting to see because Tucker Carlson, and gosh, I'm forgetting, maybe I'll look it up as we're going along here. He's been issuing a variety of different warnings over the past few months, which seems like, I wonder who he's the mouthpiece for in the administration or who wants this information out there. I'd be very curious to hear that. But in terms of the uranium enrichment, reports now say Iran is close to 60% purity. Weapons grade is 90% purity. And the JCPOA, the Obama negotiated initial Iran deal, had it like basically the threshold at what, 3 and change percent? That's the I'm forgetting the exact percentage, but
3.67.
Thank you. Yeah. And so that's quite low. That's quite low.
Yeah, that's quite low.
Can you explain that? Yeah, right.
Yeah, and that's what the level of enrichment you need to have in order to produce fuel rods for civil nuclear reactors.
Right.
And they agreed to go down to just that in the JCPOA. They have agreed to go down to that in a new deal with Trump as well. So we can easily get them back to that. And there's nothing wrong with that, even though Obama did the same thing. But if the insistence is on zero, that's when we will probably end up in a scenario in which they will continue the 60% enriched uranium. And we will have some sort of a gravitation towards a military confrontation.
And the Houthis, right? I wonder how you think that the negotiations with the Houthis play into this, given their ties with Iran, because the Trump administration pissed off the Israelis by directly engaging in negotiations with the Houthis and almost going over the top and praising their resilience, which is a benefit to the Houthis as they kind of try to cement their power in Yemen. How does that the Yemen conflict and the Trump negotiations with the Houthis play into the Iran negotiations as well as Israel's fury at that?
Let me first say part of the reason why Trump said those things about the Houthis is essentially because it's true. The Pentagon was quite struck by how resilient the Houthis were. And I mean, for 45 days, the US threw almost everything it had at the Houthis, and it didn't make a difference. And there were several instances in which the Houthis might have also ended up killing American soldiers and blowing up major American weaponry. So it was a very futile exercise. It was a huge mistake for Trump to go in the first place. And this is part of the reason why Waltz was also fired, because he was a key champion of going into Yemen. I want to give Trump credit, though, because in most cases like this, when an American president starts or enters into a stupid war and realizes that it's a stupid war, they don't pull out. Instead, they just keep on going for years and years, hand it over to the next president in order for that president to have to deal with the headache of declaring a withdrawal and trying to spin it as a victory. Instead, Trump just did it. He said, this is a victory, pulled out, didn't tell the Israelis about it. And when he was asked as to whether the agreement also included that the Houthis would no longer attack Israel, he said no, and he said that he didn't care if they did, which shows that when something is very important to Trump, he doesn't follow the American conventional wisdom of deferring to Israel or looping in the Israelis in a matter in which the Israelis would get a veto on what the U.S. decides. He just went ahead and did it on his own, and I think ultimately that is what he should have done. It's better to him actually correcting that mistake than to just double down on it, which most American presidents unfortunately would have. Now, what is fascinating in all of this is that mediation took place also through the Omanis, who talked to the Houthis, and there was some pressure from the Iranians on the Houthis. Now, the Houthis are not a proxy of the Iranians and by any stretch of the imagination. So it's not as if they just follow what the Iranians say. The Iranians have some sway, but they don't have a veto over the Houthis. But one Arab diplomat who was involved in this told me that there wouldn't have been that agreement with the Houthis and Trump had there not been a beginning. At the time, I think he said 3 rounds of constructive talks between the U.S. and Iran.
How So we've established what Trump's kind of motivations are, is that he wants a deal. He likes to think of himself as the deal maker. I mean, the art of the deal, it's not that hard to figure out, even though I think it blows people's minds in Washington, and even mine to an extent, that someone can be so ideologically untethered and just be interested in this kind of personal brand. But it's unfortunately it's an indictment on the Democrats and the Biden administration that this is an improvement to a degree over what we've seen over the past 2 years of the Biden presidency. And it's like, so Trump wants a deal. There's no deal without Iran enriching uranium at a low level for civilian use. But my question to you is it possible that Trump is letting Israel kind of continue to this genocide in Gaza, not just because of his donors, not just because, American mercenaries are conducting these honeypots and slaughtering Palestinians, and there's some financial incentive there. We all know he doesn't care about the Palestinians, but does he not want to doubly piss off the Israelis as he pursues this deal with Iran? Is that part of it too? Because the Palestinians, they have nothing to offer him, but if he can do this deal with Iran, that flatters his ego, and he's interested in this Nobel Peace Prize. That's what he gets out of that.
So essentially what you're pointing to, is there a risk that he is letting the Israelis do whatever they want to do in Gaza because he wants to focus on Iran? And I think there is a risk that is taking place. But I think there are also alternative explanations, and they're not mutually exclusive. I think one of them essentially is, when it comes to Iran, when it comes to the Houthis, he actually cares about that issue. He didn't care about the Houthis until the Houthis started hurting the US. But then when that happened, it became a priority for him. And once it was a priority, he didn't care about what the Israeli position was. Iran is a priority for him because he wants to make a deal. It is, for many different reasons, important for him. And as a result, he's engaging the Israelis, but he's not letting them completely dictate, although the Israelis have been effective in getting under his skin when it comes to zero enrichment. And that may prove to be fatal, unfortunately. But we have nevertheless seen that he has a far greater degree of independence than Biden had on this issue. I mean, when he summoned Netanyahu to the White House, many of us feared that it was because they were going to plan some sort of attack. And it turned out instead that he brought him there. And then in front of the cameras, he told them, on Saturday, we're going to meet with the Iranians. And you could see how shocked Netanyahu became. So, and no other American president has treated Netanyahu this way. In fact, the Obama administration went out of their way to brief the Israelis on every detail of the negotiations. Wendy Sherman, when she was in Europe conducting a round of talks, she would not fly back to Washington. She would first fly to Israel, brief the Israelis, then fly to Washington. So State Department officials actually didn't get the full briefing until after the Israelis got it. The Obama administration stopped doing that when U.S. intelligence picked up that Ron Dermer, the U.S. ambassador back then, was actually taking advantage of these briefings in order to spread tidbits of information in a disingenuous way to Congress in order to sabotage the negotiations.
And that's around the same time that the Republicans went around Obama and invited Netanyahu to speak at Congress, which was a huge scandal because that's the president's purview.
Exactly. So
yes,
Obama goes out of his way to be as transparent as possible with Israelis and with the Netanyahu government, and they repay him by using that information to sabotage the talks. Now, Trump doesn't do this. And going back to your earlier question, yes, I mean, there's a lot of different things that are highly problematic. There's a lot of style issues that I think just comes with the way Trump does. But as Biden's own envoy, Rob Malley, said in an interview with New York Times, he said that he thinks that Trump has a better chance of getting a deal for a simple reason, that he wants a deal, whereas Biden was always lukewarm about a deal. He was lukewarm about a deal with Iran because he didn't want to have any tensions with Israel the manner Obama ended up having. So he essentially defers to Israel instead of pursuing U.S. national interests. He didn't do anything to correct and revive Obama's deal with Cuba either. And that would have had no political cost. So you had a president that really abandoned diplomacy in so many different ways, including on Ukraine. Ukraine would have been in a much better situation today Had the Obama administration, the Biden administration actually been serious about starting negotiations, which does not mean that you necessarily end the fighting, but you actually conduct some parallel negotiations, there would have been a much better situation today if a deal had been struck back then rather than a deal being struck now.
And that was a part of this Biden foreign policy that was, and we're repeating this on the show a good amount, but I think people should internalize it, a World War II relic mentality of the alliances built from that framework. And we're seeing how there are some things that need to change, including like Europe needs to be more responsible for their own security. This is where you can, these paleo conservatives, perhaps we have some overlap here. Like the United States should not be, this was the critique of NATO expansion, for example, that I think some on the left, like myself, are very sympathetic to that critique. But Biden tripled, quadrupled down on it. And in addition to the worldview being what he promulgated and that being a starting point that I think set us back, he also refused to negotiate with our enemies basically at all, which Trump does in his own way where it's self-dealing. But I'm much more encouraged by, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but like a more diplomatic approach under Trump than on Biden, where he's just, we only, we'll talk to Hamas via mediators, although I think they did speak to them directly, but made sure the Israelis didn't know about it at some points, like, Russia, just militarism as opposed to brokering these talks. There's more hope in this area, at least, to come to some sort of endpoint here.
I agree. And I think what you have seen is that in the Trump America First circle, there has been an adoption of realism and restraint as the guiding star for their foreign policy. I personally hope that that also happens on the left, because there is a lot of things that the left wants to achieve on foreign policy that actually can be materialized by adopting such an approach, which first and foremost means the United States no longer seeks to have military hegemony globally. When we take away that fundamental, overarching approach towards the world, a lot of things open up for opportunities for diplomacy and other things that the left also wants. And this is a very strongly held view on the right as well, amongst those who have adopted this, which is clearly the America First crowd there. So, and I think what I'm really worried about is that instead the Democratic Party goes in the opposite direction as a reaction to what Trump is doing. Instead
Did you see that Chuck Schumer video, Trita?
I was just going to go and talk about that. Exactly.
Go for it.
I mean, if that is the line that the Democrats end up adopting, and what Hakeem Jeffries and others are saying, then we're going to see the Democrats truly turn into the foreign policy party of Liz Cheney and adopting neoconservative notions, which again is not a huge leap from where Biden actually ended up being. He didn't start off there in the beginning of his presidency. And I think that would be an absolute disaster. So I think, that fight is not over. It, in some ways, hasn't even started because I'm not really seeing any major leaders emerging yet on the Democratic side. But I think it's going to be a crucial debate. And I think one of the critical things the left should do is to really look at realism and restraint. I know it's self-serving. I'm representing the Quincy Institute. This is our grand strategy. But I think the left would really find it being tremendously rewarding for the type of things that are important to them.
Well, I couldn't agree more. And it is just looking at our politics, it's unbelievable that I first got engaged in politics because of Obama's opposition to the Iraq War. And I thought that the Democrats were the side that would be fighting against this slaughter where we killed up to 1 million people. And then you have the Biden administration facilitating this genocide and our leaders doubling down on a foreign policy that I don't know what the popularity is, but especially among the base, it's probably more unpopular with the Democratic base than it is the Republicans. Yeah.
And I think, look, Biden lost this election in such a disastrous way. So there almost wasn't the type of a deep analysis that was needed in order to be able to identify a few key factors, because there were just so many factors he was wrong on so many different things. But I do think that when and how that deeper analysis is made, and some analysis already been indicating this direction, which show that not only was Gaza an important element of this, but also Ukraine. Not because the Democratic base was against Ukraine, but because there was an uncomfort with the degree to which it had just become about military support, no diplomacy, no exit strategy, all of the different ingredients that would lead this to some sort of an endless war. And that is not popular with the Democratic base either.
But I know we don't have you for too much longer, Trita, but I just wanted to ask you a little bit. You mentioned Syria and Assad and that affecting Iran's position in the region, the fact that he's now out of power. What is the status of like the power vacuum there in Syria, and how that is potentially playing into our talks with Iran?
I don't think it has much of a direct impact on the talks with Iran. It does have an indirect impact in the sense that Trump lifting all of the sanctions on Syria, which no one thought any president could do, but he just issued a general license and just said all of it is going to be gone. And of course, implementation of it is key now, so we'll see what happens. But I think that may have, on the one hand, sent the Iranians a signal, which I'm sure they're not happy about, because at the end of the day, Jolani was the head of al-Qaeda in Syria. This is not someone who we can say really has transitioned, because we have been able to observe over a long period of time that he really is a different person. So the speed in which this is going, obviously, I think a lot of folks inside the Trump administration itself are a bit uncomfortable with. But on the other hand, the promise of sanctions relief to Iran, if the Iranians agree to a lot of nuclear concessions, I think actually got a boost, because it showed that Trump actually is willing and capable to go much further than any other president and just go through all of the red tape to deliver sanctions relief. So in that sense, I think it could actually have a bit of a positive effect, because the credibility of American promises was not only weak under Trump, because of course he walked out of the JCPOA, but it actually became very weak under Biden as well. And something needs to be done to restore that. And with what he's done in Syria, it may actually have taken a step in that right direction.
Well, this isn't, for me, a little bit more unexpected in terms of some of the opportunities that we have here, but we'll see if Trump follows through. Like, I have my doubts about Rubio and what he's going to try to push in these negotiations, given his hawkishness. But like, at least Trump has this like I've been burned before kind of mentality about it.
And I think you're absolutely right. There is a very, very intense struggle taking place inside of the administration between those who favor a more realism and restrained foreign policy, America first, and people like Rubio. And the latest moves that we have seen in just the last couple of weeks, particularly what happened at the NSC, indicates that the wind is in the sail of those who want a foreign policy that is very different from what Biden pursued and very different from what George W. Bush pursued. But of course, things can change. If there's anything that would be the hallmark of the Trump administration, is that hardly anything is ever stable for very long.
Trita Parsi, Executive Vice President of the Quincy Institute. You can read his books on the subject. Really, really recommend the work over there, and responsiblestatecraft.org, right? That's how you check it out. Thanks so much for your time today. Really
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it. Thank you.
We are back. We are going to wrap up the free part of the show, head into the fun half. Thank you to Trita Parsi for coming on and talking to us, making some time this morning.
I mean, if you are a member of the Majority Report, you could do worse than just searching Trita's name in our archives and going back through, listening through all those. Like, ever since I started here, he's been one of my favorite foreign policy guests. Completely
Just clear-eyed and nonpartisan in a way that is, like, I think essential in this area, given how bipartisan the military-industrial complex is.
And in a way that's not sort of naive and, taking, say, things at face value, but also not closed to, say, opportunities. And I mean, it's another thing where Liz Warren has sort of played Trump like this too, saying, you know what, let's just get rid of the debt ceiling.
Right.
Screw that thing. If we're like, and those sorts of opportunities should be sought even in this circumstance.
Absolutely. Folks, it's your support that makes the show possible. If you can, please become a member. Join the majorityreport.com. It's easy. You can support this show for the price of, a fancier cup of coffee a month. Although, I don't know. Prices, I feel like even the fancy coffee, now we're like talking $8 or whatever here in New York. But
not mine, Duncan.
now you're Duncan. I get it. I know. But you can. What's going on here?
World War is breaking out between Elon and Trump.
Oh, yeah. We will be getting to that in the fun half. Gosh, that's great. That's great.
It's great. And then I'm pretty sure I predicted on this program that the public is going to turn on Elon and then right in time for the Democrats to embrace him and to make Trump look cool for standing up to the rich guy that ruined everything.
Oh, my God. Oh. Well, Ro Khanna is the one leading the charge about reintegrating Elon back into the party. We will talk about that in the fun half. Matt, what's happening on Left Reckoning?
Yeah, Left Reckoning. David's back from finishing up his book. So we'll be doing a Sunday show, just the two of us, patreon.com/Left Reckoning, coming up this weekend. We had Alex Jordan and Courtney Rollins on Tuesday night from the Quincy Institute, in fact. They have a show, Why Are We Always at War, I believe it's called, on YouTube, and talked about that sort of thing and stock trading by congressional representatives. So, yeah, patreon.com/Left Reckoning.
Well, let's bring in Brandon if we have him. Read some IMs while we're bringing him in. Kentucky boy, listening to this interview and wondering if Biden had a PhD in fucking up foreign policy, or was he just that good? He was just that good, baby. I liked that. It was his foreign policy speech, the same one where he mixed up Putin and Zelensky, but you had the Biden partisans hyping it up after that, because that was his post-debate. A big speech was to talk about AUKUS or whatever.
It's pretty gross to watch just the depraved level of, yeah, like just saying things because your political future relies on it. It's like all the different candidates in NYC that were like, yeah, you know who the most effective Democrat is? Cory Booker or Hakeem Jeffries. Like, you're saying that because you need favors from that person.
Right.
Like, no honest person would say that.
Yeah, exactly right. Hello, Brandon.
Hello.
Hello. How are you? What's happening on the discourse? All that good stuff.
I'm doing very well. I actually just finished up streaming a little bit later than I anticipated before coming on here. But today we covered the ever-changing tariff situation going on with the Trump administration. We watched Michael Knowles interviewed Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary, after going to CPAC.
But Orban's anti-gay. Sorry, never mind.
Oh, right. Yeah, wrong guy.
Oops, never mind.
Wrong guy, right?
Yeah, so it
Sure.
must be the wrong guy.
Must be.
I guess that was just his reel. Sorry, Brandon, go ahead.
Well, I mean, they seem to have a productive conversation nevertheless. And then we talked about the Dutch government kind of right-wing coalition collapsing. So really good stream. Go check it out. We'll be streaming again tomorrow on The Discourse with Brandon Sutton on YouTube and Twitch. So, you know, be there or be square.
Hell yeah. All right, we're going to bring in Matt Binder here, and he will give us an update. There he is. This is Mike.
Hey, how are you?
It
Can you hear?
is. Yes, can hear you great. How are you, Binder? What's happening on your many shows?
Oh, just go to youtube.com/Matt Binder. It'll all be there. And then Leftist Mafia tonight at 8:30 p.m. See you all there then.
You guys going to be covering the debate from last night?
Probably, yes.
Yes. We played some clips up front, but we did save some goodies for you guys in the fun half. We'll get into that.
Oh, perfect.
So we'll head in now. We'll take your calls on the other side. I'll give you the number when we open up the phone lines. See you there.
Okay, Emma, please.
Well, I feel that my voice is sorely lacking on the majority report.
Wait, whoa, look, Sam is unpopular.
I do deserve a vacation at Disney World. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome Emma to the show.
It is Thursday.
I think you need to take over for Sam.
Yes, please. No. I'm gonna pause you right there. Wait, what? You can't encourage Emma to live like this. And I'll tell you why. So was offered a tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. Who was offered a tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. What? Tour,
what you did to Tim Pool was mean.
Free speech.
That's not what we're about here. Look at how sad he's become now. You shouldn't even talk about it. I think you're responsible.
I probably am in a certain way, but let's get to the meltdown here.
Sushi and poker with the boys.
Oh my God.
Wow. Sushi. I'm sorry, I'm losing my fucking mind. So was offered a tour. Yeah. Sushi and poker with the boys.
Logic.
Tour. Sushi and poker with the boys. Boy. Tour. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a kid. Tour. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a little kid. Had this debate 7,000 times. A little kid. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a kid. Tour. I'm losing my fucking mind.
Some people just don't understand.
So I'm not trying to be a dick right now, but like, I absolutely think the U.S. should be providing me with a wife and kids.
That's not what we're talking about here. Okay, all right.
It's not a fun job. Tour?
That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing.
Willy Wonka tour?
That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing.
What's that offered a tour?
That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing.
That's a tour?
A real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing.
What's that offered a tour?
Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Rogan has done it again.
That offered a tour?
That's a real thing. That's
poker with the boys.
I think he might be blowing it out of proportion. Real thing. That's
poker with the boys. That offered a tour?
That's a real thing. That's
poker.
Let's go, Joey.
Tour? Sushi and poker with the boys.
Take it easy, Dan.
Tour? Sushi and poker.
Things have really gotten out of hand.
Sushi and poker with the boys.
Delusional.
Tour?
Deluded.
Sushi.
You don't have a clue as to what's going on. Live YouTube.
Sam has like the weight of the world on his shoulders.
Poggers.
Sam doesn't want to do this show anymore. It was so much easier when the Majority Report was just you. You were happy.
Let's change the subject.
Rangers and Knicks are doing great.
Now shut up. You don't want people saying reckless things on your program.
That's
now,
one of the most difficult parts about this show.
This is a pro-killing podcast.
I'm thinking maybe it's time we bury the hatchet.
Left is best. Trump Violet
tour.
Don't be foolish and don't fucking tweet at me and don't bitch. The way Emma has cucked all of these people, love it.
That's where my heart is. So I wrote my honors thesis about it.
She wrote an honors thesis. I guess I should hand the main mic to you now.
You are to the right of me on foreign policy.
We already fund Israel, dude. Are you against that?
That's a tougher question I have an answer to.
Incredible theme song.
Hi, Bumbler.
Emma Vigeland, absolutely one of my favorite people. Actually, not just in the game, like period.
We are back. It is the fun half with our fun half fun friends. You say fun twice. Reiterate it.
Is that going to be a new thing? Is someone going to make like an intro video? Emma Vigeland with the fun half fun friends or something like that?
You know what? It's not the worst idea any of us have ever had.
I'll be a member of the fun half fun friends. It sounds like that old like DC, what was it? Superman and the Super Friends. I'm down with it. I'll do it.
I'm down with it too. So we're in complete alignment here.
You know what's really fun is two people we hate are fighting.
Oh my God! Yes,
that could be a lot of two people.
The two top people.
The two people. The two big dogs.
The kahunas.
Are fighting. Yes, one of the two horsemen of the apocalypse. I mean, Netanyahu we got to throw in there. Trump and Elon as well. I would say those are my nominees at the very least. But there's been this growing, apparently, discontent that Elon Musk has that has been bubbling between Trump and Elon Musk, and this is all around the big beautiful bill. So, well, I'm just back up for a sec to give you guys a sense of like what I've observed from the timeline. Maybe it was last week, I think now, that the New York Times had this report on Elon Musk's drug use, and it noted within the first two paragraphs that Elon Musk, and it detailed a lot of like things that happened in the White House, and then noted pretty quickly that Elon Musk has not made good on his promise to give $100 million to Trump organizations for the 2026 midterms that he had said he was going to do. And I found that to be like, oh, it's still 2025. It's early. The fact that they said that in this article, and it was likely Trump people who were sourcing it for the Times, just made me raise my eyebrows a little bit. And then we get into this week, and Elon Musk is just like all out criticizing Trump's bill that's being currently negotiated in the Senate. And Axios spoke to some other Trump people there, and they said that the issues that Elon has are as follows, is that the bill cuts EV tax credits. We talked about this before. Tesla is in free fall. They need some of these EV tax credits if people are going to be even interested in buying those things anymore.
That's how it's still a company. It's
Yeah.
not because of all the cars they're selling.
And so he's pissed about that. The other thing is that Trump had wanted Starlink to be used for the FAA, and the administration was a little uneasy about that. In part,
Trump or Musk wanted Starlink.
Musk, did I say?
You said Trump
Oh,
wanted.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Musk
yes.
wanted it, yeah.
Musk wanted Starlink to be used for the FAA, but planes are crashing all over the place, and
Already.
there's so many difficulties. I'm sure they were just like, maybe we back off of this. We'll give Starlink some other goodies, but that wasn't enough. And then Axios reported that the final straw that broke Elon Musk's hunchback was over the weekend when Trump withdrew the nomination of this guy, Jared Isaacman, who is somebody that Elon Musk wanted to head NASA or be a top official at NASA. Now, again, Starlink is dependent on the privatization of NASA to give them more contracts.
Starlink wouldn't exist if we hadn't been privatizing NASA like we started after 2008.
Right. So this is what sent Elon on the warpath. I'd also say that, like, generally capitalists and rich people don't like this bill because because the dollar has weakened significantly since the tariff announcement, and when you compound that with it exploding the national debt, that actually creates like financial precarity for the entire United States economic system. And that's why Moody's said that like they started downgrading the United States credit rating. It wasn't just in response to the tariffs. It was the tariffs and then this bill, which would exacerbate the problems that we're already seeing with both like economic uncertainty in terms of the job market drying up. There's some really concerning private sector job reports that are the worst they've been in years. And then also just like what this does to the national debt and the interest that would accrue for the United States to continue to borrow. So with all of that context, Elon and Trump are going at each other on social media. Matt, can you explain how this has been going down here?
So this is the newswire_US, which is not an account I follow, and I wouldn't recommend it, but they have a pretty good update here of what's been going on. So first was, looks like this morning, Elon Musk retweeted a dozen-year-old tweet from Trump saying, "I cannot believe the Republicans are extending the debt ceiling. I am a Republican and I am embarrassed." And Elon Musk quote tweeted that saying, "Was words."
Oh, you don't want to do that to show that Donald Trump's been a hypocrite in the past. I mean, pick any issue and you'll find it, but highlighting this is going to piss him off.
I'm using Grok to find out your positions have changed. Trump says he'll be going to China, which, good. Trump, Elon is mad that I took his EV credit away. Continues here. Trump on Musk, disappointed. Trump would have won Pennsylvania without him. Trump, I don't know if we will have a great relationship with Elon anymore.
Wow.
Musk following the criticism, whatever. Elon, quote, without me, Trump would have lost the election. And then next, 4 minutes ago, Elon Musk unfollows senior Trump advisor Stephen Miller. I wonder if Katie,
is his wife is still working
is Katie
for
stuck
him?
in the crossfire here? But that's basically the newest volley is Elon Musk has hit the unfollow button.
Wow. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I remember a few weeks ago, we were saying with, Elon Musk's time as the head of Doge, as like a special government employee coming to an end, that we were surprised that his relationship, at least on the surface level, with Trump was going to end without any kind of messy drama. And 'cause it seemed like it wasn't going to have any messy drama.
Well, it seemed like they were in a financial they had some financial deal together, and that's why we said like that even if they break up, they'll still be cordial because they're making money off of each other.
Yeah, and it also seemed like, Elon leaving the Doge was more of a symbolic and branding deal, with Elon Musk just not being popular, which I think goes to your point about why they made a point of pointing out that Elon was not putting his money behind any candidates in the midterm elections, where it's like Elon is just not very popular, broadly speaking, anymore. And so we thought, at least I thought they were just going to, minimize his position in the White House, but perhaps that was enough, along with these other things, to like make his ego, hurt.
Yeah, I think it was simply like the fact that this clearly undermines the entire project that he set out to create and do. Like, I do think he still had ins with the Trump administration, and that he actually did. Like, I agree with you that he actually was just, to save face specifically for like Tesla. He was saying that he was leaving, but he still very much was going to be working with the administration. And I think, like, combined with the reports of his alleged drug use and him hearing all these things about, there was a lot of people, we know how thin-skinned he is, and there was a lot of people mocking the fact that Elon's job was done. And lo and behold, the 2025 budget sees the federal government spending more than they did last year, which completely makes a mockery out of Musk's whole being and project. So I think he couldn't handle that. And he was ready to face the consequences of losing that inside, track he had with them to voice his opposition to it. And now we're seeing the consequences of that with Trump attacking him.
I would say there were also a lot of indications.
Yeah, we have some video here, Brandon. If you just want to, this
put
is just
a pin
20
in it
seconds
for a
here.
sec. Yeah. Trump, I guess, acknowledged this at the White House. He was doing this briefing about his meeting with President Xi, right?
Yeah, and this is the newly gilded White House with a bunch of new gold leaf put on over stuff. I don't know if people saw that detail, but a little bit classier, okay?
He knew every aspect of this bill. He knew it better than almost anybody. And he never had a problem until right after he left. And if you saw the statements he made about me, which I'm sure you can get very easily, it's very fresh on tape. He said the most beautiful things about me. And he hasn't said bad about me personally, but I'm sure that'll be next. But I'm very disappointed in Elon. I've helped Elon a lot.
That is probably okay. So I've now long suspected that there's so many daddy issues wrapped up in Elon's obsession with Trump, like the way he would talk about how he loved him and things like that. You know that Elon Musk doesn't have a relationship with his father, and his father goes out publicly to say how disappointed in him and how not proud he is of him and how he's a bad person all the time. Now his surrogate daddy says he's disappointed in him.
So disappointed in you.
I mean, all these guys have daddy issues. Trump has daddy issues too. This is like the defining attribute, the defining feature of these right-wing conservatives, right-wing oligarchs, and right-wing billionaires, and right-wing elites. They all have daddy issues. Does everybody know what a
condom is?
Sorry.
Well, that and also like weird psychosexual obsessions. But, Elon definitely falls into both of those buckets. I will say, I was going to say before the clip was played, there was also a lot of stories throughout the past few months that Elon was butting heads with a lot of other Trump cabinet officials. And this might be that bubbling up too. Like, we know he didn't particularly like Peter Navarro, although, again, a broken clock can be right twice a day.
Right.
And he wasn't like, getting along with Besant either. Like he wasn't very popular internal to the White House either. So I think, there's a lot of hurt feelings that can come out now.
And Besant and who was the first guy you said? Navarro. It's not like they got along either.
No.
So he's like, this is Dunning-Kruger to such a huge extent. It is like, oh, we'll get the richest billionaire in and he'll know exactly because he must be a genius. And he doesn't know like basic politics of like, maybe don't fight every faction at the exact same time, including ones that are at each other's throats about, say, tariff policy or whatever.
Right. I mean, maybe don't jump around on stage and as you're talking about like buying an election in Wisconsin. Do you think people like the idea that billionaires are buying our elections? The smart guys do it. That's why they hide behind super PACs and dark money organizations, you dumbass.
The optics are clearly what upset Trump. Go ahead, Binder.
No, I was just gonna say, like Musk especially clearly thinks of himself in a very very highly. He's obviously a narcissist, and he thinks that others view him that way too, because he's surrounded himself by yes men. And I'm not even just talking like the people he hires, the Doge kids who like looked up to him as some sort of like idol. I'm talking about like his entire daily life. Like when he logs into his own website, he's surrounded himself with these people who like call themselves with usernames like the Doge Father or Elon Musk Facts, and that's what he sees. That's what he knows to be the reality, because that's all he sees. So like he thinks that like he's gonna go out and everyone's gonna feel the same way about him. Like I truly think he was really caught by surprise and shocked by what happened to Tesla, because he could not foresee it happening. He had no idea.
Well, he's created a social media. He's bought a social media Well, so I said more headroom, but thank you for it. It's okay.
I just did it.
No, it actually works out. This is what it's like for me to sit up like this. Shoot, what was I saying? Ah, dang it.
He bought his own platform.
Oh, he bought his own platform because he was so upset about criticism from the outside. So he created a multi-billion-dollar cocoon for himself and for other right-wingers. And there you go. Like, of course he's sensitive to any information that might contradict his priors.
He's denying that. He's like, I never saw the bill or whatever.
Right.
Nobody showed me the bill, which doesn't mean he didn't know that he was getting his EV credits or not. So that's a little bit of a lawyer thing. But here's a little bit more from the Oval Office, Russ. Here's Trump.
He's upset. Remember, he was here for a long time. You saw a man who was very happy when he stood behind the Oval desk. And even with the black eye, I said, do you want a little makeup? We'll get you a little makeup. But he said, no, I don't think so, which is interesting and very nice. He wants to be who he is, so you should make that statement too, I guess. Look, Elon and I had a great relationship.
Wait, can you pause it? There's nothing that makes him more upset than the idea that he turned down an opportunity to be camera ready.
You don't want a little makeup?
Right.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. On The Apprentice, everybody wants to look their best, but you want to come out there with a shiner like that? I don't know about that.
And when he says Elon was looking happy behind the desk, what he's saying is he looked like he was on drugs, because that's what everybody saw, including Patrick Bet-David was like, do you think he's on drugs? And they're like, well, I don't care what he does in his profile. But this is so beautiful, man.
Yeah, and even with the black eye, I said, do you want a little makeup? We'll get you a little makeup. But he said, no, I don't think so, which is interesting and very nice.
What does that mean?
So you could make that statement too, I guess. Look, Elon and I had a great relationship. I don't know if we're well anymore. I was surprised because you were here. Everybody in this room practically was here as we had a wonderful send-off. He said wonderful things about me. You couldn't have nicer. Said the best thing. He's worn the hat. Trump was right about everything. And I am right about the great, big, beautiful bill. We call it a great, big, beautiful bill because that's what it is. And again, biggest tax cuts in history, biggest economic development moves anywhere. We've never done anything like it.
No. Just some notes on the CBO scored the bill recently, and Trump was touting that it said it's going to raise a certain large amount of money towards the deficit. What he didn't say is the other things that the CBO found, which is it's literally going to shrink the economy and drive inflation up massively. So
Yeah, right. I mean, he leaves out the fact that it's going to throw over 10 million people off of healthcare, that we already have hundreds of hospitals, rural hospitals that are at risk of immediate closure, and this basically ensures that that's going to happen.
President Trump's sweeping tariff plan would cut deficits by $2.8 trillion over a 10-year period, and that's what, of course, he's touting. They didn't continue, which is while shrinking the economy, raising inflation rate, and reducing the purchasing power of households overall. Really, the Malay treatment on America is what's happening.
Shock therapy, basically.
I want to know. We could just be written off as one of his Trumpisms because it does sound like that. But it also could be that he's trying to hint at something, and what that is, I want to know when he says. Elon turned down the makeup, which is interesting. I'm
telling you what it is. I'm telling you what it is. It's TV. He wants people out of central casting. He wants you to look good on television, and he thinks it's interesting. You don't want to go and look your best on TV. That's what he means.
Well, for Musk, probably I'm not wearing makeup. I'm not going to be I'm Mr. Masculine. I don't wear makeup. That's probably what Musk's thought process is.
I guess.
Well, I mean, I hate to judge anyone for not coming on camera shy or camera ready, I should say, in the sense that like Musk does like to go on to large platforms without like shaving and does like to go on large platforms without makeup. I think in the case of the black eye, though, what made it extra like noticeable and weird is that there's no good story for how he got it. Like, I think the obvious conclusion you have to come to is that he got really high on ketamine and fell. But he tells this story where like he was teaching X how to do like roundhouse kicks or something, and he got kicked in the face.
He said, "I asked my son to punch me in the face, and he did."
Yeah, that's stupid.
Normal.
Is so normal. And also, we know you don't spend time with your kids, so
right. Yeah, your all your baby mamas have to like try to harass you on in the replies of your app in order to get your attention. To
right,
your
unless that kid's being used as like a shield to deflect from the press asking you tough questions.
Just,
classy.
Just one more little snippet from this.
I just saw what the headline is, and I almost burst out laughing.
Things are happening in this room, and I'll tell you, he's not the first. People leave my administration and they love us, and then at some point they miss it so badly, and some of them embrace it and some of them actually become hostile. I don't know what it is. It's sort of Trump derangement syndrome, I guess they call it.
Oh no.
We have it with others too. They leave, they wake up in the morning and the glamour's gone, the whole world is different, and they become hostile. I don't know what it is. Someday you'll write a book about it and you'll let us know. Yeah.
It's like a drug come down. You know, sometimes some people, I'm not saying who, but they're weaker than I am. They like to take ecstasy. They like to take ketamine.
Sometimes the morning after, people feel a little bit different.
Yeah, they want that drug again, but they're not going to get it.
I want Trump to reference that old post when him and Elon were originally on bad terms, and he was like, "Elon came into my office on his knees like a dog."
Yes.
I think it's a mistake for Elon to pick a social media or publicity fight with Trump at a time where he is incredibly weak, and that's reflected in like Tesla's tenuously priced stock. I think this is like a not smart move. Even if he is feeling hurt or disappointed in Doge, this can only really relate or result in him having no home politically in America, because like the far right is going to align with Trump. Because if it's a posting battle, like Elon is going to lose. Elon is going to lose the posting battle. He's going to lose the posting battle. He's going to lose the battle on his own website, which is going to depress him. You know, I would love to be Elon's cat dealer right now. You're going to really be in the money.
He's got to be rolling in it right now.
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos' space company suddenly has all the technological advancements to get all those NASA contracts now. Maybe.
I don't know if we want to give contracts to guys who own trucks. Okay.
So here's this. Elon, without me, Trump would have lost the election. Dems would control the House and the Republicans would be 51-49 in the Senate. What's he saying there? That he got 2 of those seats? One, I would imagine, is Sherrod Brown getting ousted, but that was the crypto money, basically, explicitly.
Yeah, like, I don't know how rich guys who buy elections understand how it looks to be like, oh, you know this awful political situation we're in right now that even I recognize sucks? Yeah, my checkbook is responsible for it.
I mean, Trump in 2016, there are 2 things that people never talk about his political appeal. One is that in the 2016 primary, he hit everybody for being pro-Iraq war, particularly Jeb Bush, where he was saying about how insane it was, how I was against it. It's part of why he still has this like kind of default I'm anti-war thing, where it's more about corrupt deals, although still sometimes better than what we were seeing in the final 2 years of Joe Biden, for now at least. And then the other thing is the corruption thing, where he said, I am the guy that has been in those rooms. I'm the guy that has paid politicians to do what I want, and I know how the sausage gets made, and I'm going to change things for you. And so if this is not the fight Elon wants to pick with Trump obviously is lying about all of that stuff. We don't need to talk about the sincerity because it's basically irrelevant to him.
I hope the bill
conversation.
dies.
Yeah, to the conversation, it's about how he's sold himself to the public, unfortunately, successfully. Trump has actual charisma. Elon Musk is somebody who, without all of his money, would be weirding everybody out.
Elon Musk is a great experiment in like how much money, how can money convert into charisma?
Right.
And the answer is not very readily.
And so, people like us would say, okay, this is a great thing to see this breakup because you won't have Elon Musk's money in the primaries. It's fun to see them fight. Also, we want to see billionaires suffer defeats like this. It's fun to see. But then there are others in the Democratic Party, really particularly one person who's decided to go into, we could go to the Politico article I sent earlier. I think, or I sent it in Slack, actually. Maybe I gotta send it here. Yeah. There was an article in Politico, Dems eye a villain to ally arc for Musk. Immediately. Last night.
Terrible instincts.
After all of these clips here. But I gotta say, they're being a little generous with the plural thing, although there are two people who have come together.
I honestly would rather ally with Trump than Musk. I'd rather ally with Trump to take on Musk than the other way around.
100%. Elon Musk has been the Democratic Party's boogeyman since shortly after President Donald Trump deputized him as a top advisor. But the billionaire's recent breaks with the GOP, Musk ripped Trump's big beautiful bill, blah, 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 are complicating the party's portrayal of him as a chainsaw-wielding, bureaucracy-breaking villain. A few Democrats are eager to welcome Musk, who said he voted for Joe Biden in 2020 and gave a tour of SpaceX to then President Barack Obama back into the fold. Representative Ro Khanna, who represents Silicon Valley and has known Musk for over a decade, said Democrats should, quote, be in dialogue with Musk, given their shared opposition to the GOP's mega bill. We should ultimately be trying to convince him that the Democratic Party has more of the values that he agrees with, Khanna said. A commitment to science funding, a commitment to clean technology, a commitment to seeing international students like him. This is insane. And then next up, we have the Democrat who's on the wrong side of every issue, Richie Torres.
Yeah, of course, yeah, Richie. Oh. But
I'm a believer. I'm a believer in redemption, and he's telling the truth about the legislation. These people are a cancer on the party. Go on, Matt. Sorry.
I mean, a commitment to science funding, a commitment to clean technology. What are you talking? This is lip service. He's been in the Trump White House as Trump has decimated all that stuff. Commitment to seeing international students like him. What has Musk really done?
In February, Ro Khanna missed a vote to subpoena Elon Musk, and then pretended that he got his schedule mixed up or something like that. Yeah, he said I was unaware that it was happening. Please.
Well, that was especially weird because he was the one who tipped the press off that the NLRB vote to get in Biden's lame duck was squandered by Kamala Harris doing the same thing about a vote.
Yeah. So basically, he's lying, and this is pretty disgraceful. I can't believe this guy gets to call himself a progressive.
There's no aligning with Elon Musk after all he's done. He has honestly, we lived through the first Trump administration. There was a lot of harm done, but what Elon Musk has done to broader society. There are we thought the Charlottesville thing that happened under Trump's first term was a big deal. Those guys are walking around on all corners of the internet now, thanks to Elon Musk, spreading their shit openly. It is the neo-Nazi stuff, the far right-wing fringes are much worse than they've ever been. And they're not really fringe anymore. And Elon Musk is, if not the single-handedly biggest factor there, he's a very, very large one.
Yep.
Oh, absolutely. And I think there's also two other things at play. I mean, the obvious one is that they want Elon Musk's money. Elon Musk still, for the time being, has tons of money that can be, given to Democratic Party consultants, can be given to Democratic Party special contractors, can be paid out to McKinsey consultants they hire. And so they want that. They want that money. They want that money back sloshing around on their side. And I also think that Elon Musk, in this case, for these two, is a useful vehicle to signal to the rest of Silicon Valley tech CEOs that, like, you can always just leave Trump and come back over to us. You can always just leave Trump. We know you went over there in 2024, and maybe things aren't working out the way you expected with these tech tariffs, with these steel tariffs, with the aluminum tariffs, with all this stuff. If you come back over here, no harm, no foul. We're not going to hold you to any kind of accountable. We want you to know that we will even redeem the dumbest, most evil of you in pursuit of ensuring that there is no kind of accountability for anyone for leading us into a second Trump term, because they don't want any accountability for themselves either.
Yeah, we saved your toothbrush. Doesn't matter. You've been cheating on us. Just come back.
I mean, it's also just a horrible message to send that we're embracing any billionaire. Like, I don't even care if this is like Bill Gates or whatever, somebody else. Not that Bill Gates is a good guy either, but just like less besmirched by the political elements of that are present here. Like,
frankly, Pritzker.
Well, I mean, Pritzker has a unique opportunity to be a class traitor, and we'll see, right? I mean,
but you have to be very.
Well, he's endorsed by every union in the state, so
That's true.
I'm a little bit more pro Pritzker than I would, normally be. Although I was very skeptical of his billionaire stuff early on. I think it's
not ideal, is all I'm saying.
It's not ideal, exactly. And if he does the FDR thing and this says like I'm going after them, we'll see how he positions himself in 2028. But yeah. Like, Pritzker is really maybe the only edge case, but he would have to have a platform that is about taxing the hell out of them and taxing them out of existence. That's what the Democrats should be coalescing around. Instead, we had Abundance
We
Fest.
should be making the argument to all these really rich guys that, hey, actually, we're the rich guy party. Like, no.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, and the thing is, Elon is not even just any billionaire. It's not just his giving money to Trump. He became the face of Trump's deregulatory and defunding campaign across tons of different agencies. And he, up on stage doing gamer salutes, goose stepping, like stuff like that. Like, it really is just a matter of proving to the wealthy. It's like a humiliation ritual for Democrats. They have to prove to the wealthy that there is no sin too great that you can commit against them or the rest of society, that they will not be willing to take your money and hold you up as like the moral and intellectual pinnacle of society.
Yeah, that's right. All right, guys, I'm going to open up the phone lines here. The number is 646-257-3920. Who is you says the only redemption acceptable for a billionaire is that all of their enterprises become worker owned and their wealth is appropriated to be used for public funding projects. Yeah.
Honestly, billionaires could do way less than that and get a lot of goodwill. Like, look at how massive anti-Semite and control freak and, not a good guy Henry Ford is remembered.
Yeah.
Just because he's like, well, I guess we're going to put more money in these pockets because we want them to be able to also buy the thing that we're selling.
Algorithm says, algorithm, gotcha.
Algorithm?
Algorithm. I think it's algorithm and allegory together. Isn't Ezra Klein also the guy that started Vox? Chance the entire motivation behind the whole abundance thing is just money. Well, it's definitely a big part of it.
Well, that's more clear about abundance than it was with Vox. Vox was sort of like, I mean, it was taking money from all these corporate sponsors. But the funny thing about Vox is the whole point was supposed to be that this is simplifying the news. And yet on the issue that is actually needing simplification, like, say, Israel-Palestine, it's very nuanced and hard to have any sort of clear statement at all about it. It's very interesting how that worked out.
Right.
Well, I would also just highlight that Ezra Klein is the guy who laundered Paul Ryan's into mainstream, serious thinker spaces. And that should tell you the kind of values that he has. Like, Paul Ryan was transparently, neocon, a hard right, Tea Party kind of guy, but he spoke with the kind of language that appeals to technocrats, like tinkers with the numbers. And that was enough for Ezra Klein to paint him as a good faith art, voice on the right, only for you know how that turned out. But that's the kind of values that Ezra Klein types have. They're pushing neoliberal slop.
Yes, no, 100%. That was like the sort of Obamacare push era, 2007, 2008 was when I started paying attention to politics, putting things like Ezra Klein's Wonk blog in my RSS feed. And he got to where he was not because he's a fierce, fighter for economic justice or whatever. It's because he's willing to take people like Paul Ryan and Kent Conrad seriously as they talk about austerity.
Yeah. CLM says abandoning the narrative that Elon is a bureaucracy-wrecking billionaire is in itself image rehabilitation. I don't know why you would abandon that. You're not losing it. You're just giving up. Democrats are so frustrating. Ryan from Rochester. Elon did a Nazi salute. If the Democrats look past that, we are so fucked.
Yeah.
I mean, like Ro Khanna.
Afrikaner shit. Like, what the fuck are we doing?
Richie Torres is all about anti-Semitism, apparently.
Well,
give me a break.
He's not.
Yeah. But like,
Well,
that contradiction is so obvious, right?
Yeah.
It should be.
Well,
I think
anyone
who's not bought by it.
Yeah.
I mean, in this case, they should be doing is that opposite. Elon is very unpopular broadly. He might have a high-ish approval when it comes to like Republicans and people on Twitter, but who can even say when it comes to those people how many are just like literal bots that he's personally paying for to like promote his own agenda? But like the Democrats should be tying him around the neck of the Republican Party in Trump administration and letting it sink into the sea. That's what they should have done to the Republican administration and Trump to begin with back in 2016. But they are always looking to like extricate the worst elements of the Trump administration or Trump himself from the Republican Party and put them in little like black boxes that they either try to reincorporate into their party or reintegrate into society broadly or just pretend like it's an anomaly. And I don't know, it really does make it feel like they are just controlled opposition, that they need the Republican Party to be a certain level of bad to get people upset enough to vote for Democrats, but just not quite so bad that it puts pressure on the Democrats to do like real meaningful changes.
But I mean,
they want to win a certain way.
Yeah, and it hurts their politics when they continue to separate Trump from Republicans because actually, Democrats are really unpopular. Republicans are really unpopular too. And part of why Trump won this time around is the elevating of him outside of the Republican brand, MAGA trickle down, whatever the hell. You didn't associate him with Republicans in the same way. So people think it's why you had those AOC split voters, people that voted Trump and then AOC in her district, because they both saw them as anti-establishment of both parties. Greg from the Berg, the first rule of Baby Fight Club is we don't talk about Baby Fight Club, Elon. All right, let's take a call really quickly. Calling from a 318 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 318.
Is this me?
This is you.
Oh, hello. This is Cameron calling from Texas.
Cameron from Texas. What's on your mind?
I have two really quick things that I would like to say. The first of which is something that's kind of flown under the radar. I don't see it reported on very often. So SpaceX is working very hard to get Starship launched and everything so that we can someday colonize Mars or whatever it is. So the way that the mission is structured with regards to NASA, because Starship is how we're presumably getting back to the moon with the Artemis mission.
Mm-hmm.
The current plan is we're going to launch Starship multiple times up to like an orbiting, I don't know, like refueling center.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's from that refueling center that we're then going to progress on to the moon. Sorry. All these parameters are subject to like the lift capacity of Starship, which is currently advertised as like 100,000 to 150,000 tons.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go and watch the like update that Elon gave in Boca Chica, which is where Starbase is, that's where Starship launches from. He says that like it can only launch 50,000 tons to low Earth orbit. which is where this refueling center would be located. I don't see like a whole lot of mention about this anywhere in like tech media.
Mm-hmm.
So I just find that to be very interesting that NASA's like making these Artemis missions that are assuming that the Starship can carry like 100,000 tons to low Earth orbit, when really it apparently can only carry half of that. At the very least, I would like to see someone
Fair enough.
follow up.
Appreciate the call. I mean, it's a little in the weeds for us, but yeah, like the point is that this is just not possible, and it's all about
It's all a lie.
creating investment.
And getting contracts toward these companies.
Yeah.
Elon Musk
Thanks so
is
much.
an impresario more than he's an engineer. Anytime you call him an engineer, actual engineers get really pissed at you. He definitely likes to dress up as one, but he's an impresario, which means his main role is to make giant promises to get rich people excited to get their checkbook out and invest in his companies.
Yep. All right. One more call, and then we'll do some more clips. Calling from a 650 area code. Who's this? Where you calling from?
Is that me?
Yep.
Hi, this is Quinn. I actually met a few of you guys back at the TIR. This is Give Them an Argument live show a few years back.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Fun time.
Oh, yeah. We indulged in that one. I feel like both Matt and myself.
Yeah, no, it was a good time. I was over working the merch, but I got most of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to call in to touch briefly on another issue with the proposed budget bill that I don't see being talked about very much. It does. I mean, I don't see many people talking about it. So, in this country, there is a physician shortage. That physician shortage is set to increase up to about 86,000 physicians by 2036. And the proposed budget puts some huge slashes in the Grad Plus loan program and the public service loan forgiveness program.
All right, you're cutting out a little bit.
Yeah, there's a weird.
I wanna
weird
hear this,
type of-
though.
Yeah,
One
can you
second.
make it really succinct?
Yeah.
Let's see. Is this a little better?
Yep.
All right. So the thing is that the budget cuts basically a complete elimination of the Grad Plus loan program and major restrictions on the public loan forgiveness, which are major ways that people who are in any way financially challenged can be able to get a medical education in this country. And this is going to make the physician shortage significantly worse if it passes.
The what shortage? Say it again. Oh, the doctor shortage.
Physician shortage?
Physician shortage. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just a crime. Like my best friend from high school is graduating from residency next, like in a week, and she went to a state school for medical school, but like, you know, was lucky to be able to not have to take out a ton of student loans or anything like that. I just think about people coming from out of state, like out of New Jersey, where we were from, and having to pay that tuition because you get into whatever medical
Where'd you
school.
go?
I don't want to say, but it's a New Jersey school.
So yeah, shout out Rutgers, shout out New Brunswick.
Yeah, right.
Real quick.
Fair enough.
But yeah.
But
I don't need to get into friends' business.
yeah. Point being is just like the barrier to entry. It's becoming a doctor is reproduces like class and upper class people in a way that is not conducive to like making healthcare not this bespoke buy it yourself commodity that it is in this country, because a lot of our providers are from like upper class areas.
I mean, so much of this goes back to the AMA combining with Reagan half a century ago to go against Medicare for all or a single payer type of system. And it turns out that you can run that experiment for as long as you want, and it's never going to fucking work. And so you just need to get around to, and it's the same thing goes for nursing. I know people who went to nursing school had to take out private loans, and it's disgusting that stuff isn't just covered. Like,
Yeah.
you became a nurse. You should not be paying goddamn interest to financial institutions. It's disgusting.
And medical school, like when you're in residency, you're not making any money. So like you've graduated, but you're hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt in some instances. Also, when you include undergrad, what like those you're barely making money in residency, and then after that, you're like there for years. You have to take a job in private practice, most likely, if you're in that amount of debt, to pay all of that off.
Yeah, and there is some promise with resident unions forming in a few different hospital systems, but for the most part, it also exacerbates the issue where, because of all that debt, medical students can only choose specialties that make the most money. So they're going into like derm or surgery where it takes longer for them to get into actual medical practice, but also they're not filling the role of like, family medicine in the more generalist roles that are the most in demand in the country.
Right.
But they don't pay as well. So, you can't put that on people who have hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt.
Yep, you can't. Right. We did an interview about that, and now I'm wondering. I think it was Dr. Uche Blackstock who we touched on this with. Yes, it is. I believe she had a book that came out. Gosh, okay, so it was last year. Legacy: A Black Physician Reckons with Racism in Medicine, and she is a physician herself, but talks about how difficult it is for the very reason that you're describing. I forget about the full details of it, but just wanted to plug that interview if you wanted to check it out, because we did discuss that. Appreciate the call.
No, I'll definitely check that out. Can I one quick thing? This is not a problem that happens in Cuba.
Yep, exactly.
All right. Y'all have a good one. Left is best.
Left is best. Thank you.
Didn't Marco start sanctioning any country that uses Cuban nurses? I think I saw something.
I think
about
doctors, actually.
That's insane. All right. Well, anyway, back to clips here. Now let's do the abundance thing since we were on it. We kind of alluded to it. We'll do that after, I think. So there was this Abundance Fest, Abundance Coachella, I guess, that happened the other day.
It was called Welcome Fest.
Like Ozfest?
Well, it's like, why is it, what does welcome mean? It's because it's from Welcome Pack. And the same question applies, like, why do they call it welcome to all this money from rich people that want to pervert our politics, I think is what it means.
I did not realize that, so I thought it was as generic as possible to sucker people in. But let's go to the Revolving Door Project, because they did a breakdown of all of these. Scroll to the top. The headline here. Who's behind Abundance Coachella? So I guess I stole that from them a little bit. And you'll see, there you go. There's the face of Michael Bloomberg. Here are just some of the organizations that are behind Welcome Fest.
I honestly don't recognize a few of those people. Is that Reed Hastings and a Murdoch? Is this a Murdoch?
That is James Murdoch, I believe.
Right, yeah.
But we'll see what they write here.
Shout out to Reed Hoffman.
If the abundance of universe is to be believed, the hottest ticket in this summer is Welcome Fest. I love the snark from Revolving Door Project. Wednesday's Confab is the second such annual gathering organized by the centrist group Welcome Party and its political action committee Welcome Pack, with this year's event touting distinct abundance flair. Corporate sponsors.
We got new flair for the same old shit.
Olivia Juliana is there. This year's Responsibility to Win session has drawn viral attention online, both for its bizarre Ghibli promos and stacked lineup of neoliberal pundits, conservative Democratic lawmakers, and wonderkind pollsters. Let's go to the speakers. Derek Thompson, who co-authored it, Matt Iglesias, who is the popularist guy.
I like what they say about him, though. Confidently wrong pundit, and per Derek Thompson, the OG grandfather of abundance.
Yeah. Slot merchants.
Speaking of slots, Alyssa Slotkin, who's trying to get her winning
CIA Slotkin.
Yep. We can find some old pictures of her with George W. Bush. She doesn't think the Democrats should use the term oligarchy. Richie Torres, Jake Auchincloss, Adam Gray, Christine McDonald-Rivet, Glusenkamp Perez, Jared Golden, Adam Gentleson. There you go. That was part of his rebrand with the Fetterman piece in New York Magazine, David Shore. And then here's the stuff that's really important, the welcome pack donors. Reid Hoffman, remember? This was this billionaire getting involved in trying to get Kamala Harris if she wanted to fire Lena Khan.
He's given $1.8 million to Welcome Pack since 2021.
Walton family, like the Walmart people, who I remember their involvement in the Republican Party being a scandal on the left. I guess the abundance people don't have a problem with that. Keep going down. So
Yeah,
all the
Waltons are
Waltons
there.
Michael Bloomberg, the Bain Capital co-chair, James Murdoch.
I love I love how it's called like Welcome Fest or whatever it is. Welcome, it's the Welcome Parties, Welcome Fest or whatever. And I'm looking at their website, and the name is what I assumed they would be claiming the name was, that to promote that the Democratic Party is a big tent party and must welcome a diverse mix of ideologies and perspectives. Well, that's all nice on its surface, but the left, like progressives and leftists, are a part of whatever that big tent would be, right? And the whole thing, from everything I've seen, it was about attacking and knocking the left. So their whole welcome party isn't welcome to everybody. It's literally welcome to everyone who wants to take over the Democratic Party from the left and basically fuck the left.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the left.
Go ahead.
Okay, the left doesn't have any billionaires to give millions and millions of dollars to this new neoliberal rebranding, right? You know, I mean, for me, I haven't been keeping up with the abundance stuff. I maybe wrongly or at least prejudicedly dismissed it quite early as a new wave of neoliberal slop looking to rebrand the same things the Democrats have been trying since the 70s and 80s and 90s. And when you talk about the left, all I can say is that there is a distinct difference between leftists and, you know, basically like liberals, neoconservatives, Republicans, Democrats. Every 4 years, they have to rebrand themselves on the liberal side, the center side, the far right. There's the alt-right. There's the intellectual dark web. Marxists still call themselves Marxists. Yeah. Marxists, communists still call themselves communists, socialists still call themselves socialists. And it has been that way for hundreds of years. It's only these other positions on the political spectrum who people learn aren't actually serving the people in any meaningful way that have to rebrand themselves every 2 or 3 years with some new, it's abundance movement, it's Welcome Fest, it's the alt-right, it's the Tea Party movement. It's this lack of willingness to engage with the ideological forebears of their own, position is to me always a sign of how little popularity is generated by these kinds of things.
Oh, there's no popularity. I mean, Kyle Kalinske described it well. I saw in last week him saying that this is a top-down movement. There's no bottom-up support for it as compared to the oligarchy tour or the anti-billionaire sentiment among the base right now. This is the kind of thing that's being completely imposed from the top. Yeah. And we now see the donors that are behind this imposition, including the frickin' son of Fox News' Rupert Murdoch, who's on his Kendall Roy escapades right now, trying to be a better person by being basically a conservative Democrat. These are the people that need to be jettisoned from the coalition. That this, put up that screenshot actually. This is, and then we'll get to this clip. This was when Matt Iglesias was speaking, saying here that bad groups create bad incentives for Democrats. Now, I want to know what a bad group is, and we'll get a sense from Josh Barrow in just a second. But this is about the visits to CCOT for Abrego Garcia, which we saw massive dips in Trump's polling on immigration in response to... Now, Iglesias might say that was just on its own without Democrats doing any politics, that there was that shift. Although it doesn't seem like he acknowledges that Trump lost support in polling on immigration because of this.
No, the thing, the screenshot he has is more Democratic lawmakers visit El Salvador. That's them doing politics.
Yes, and Cole Sandick on Twitter said this, and then we'll get to this clip, but like, it must be emphasized how this sort of centrism, responding to that, has become sort of a cult movement. The El Salvador trip was spectacularly successful per all polling. It doesn't matter. All GOP policies are automatically popular, and all acts of opposition against them are automatically damaging. And that's, I think, a great summation.
Because they're neoconservative.
Yeah,
right, but they're scared. They're scared of this, though. Go ahead, Brenda. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say there is a type of person who operates within liberal spaces who likes to reference this broad popularity of conservative ideas by nature of the fact that they're popular in the spaces that they traffic in, which is moneyed spaces where billionaires traffic in, spaces where the uber wealthy decide where, the direction of the country is going to be. And they try to extrapolate that out to be the position of the population. And a part of that is targeted and strategic, and part of that is just like, people want to feel as though they have their finger on the pulse of the nation, especially if they're people who write for a living about like things like this. But I mean, Ezra Klein, Matty Iglesias, they aren't serious thinkers in the way that an academic might consider them to be serious thinkers. They're serious thinkers in the way that our popular media considers them to be serious thinkers, which is oftentimes conflated. They're serious because they have billionaires who give them money, and they have millions of people who read their bad ideas because they've been astroturfed into the discourse, not to mention my own name, by similar rich people for like years and years. And so they have these built-in fan bases that people feel like they need to respect in order to get themselves platformed, or because that's what people are reading. But their ideas have been proven wrong time and time again. They're oftentimes ahistorical. They're oftentimes not based in any kind of survey or polling data. And they're still foisted upon us by nature of the fact that the conspiracies that they traffic in are reflective of the beliefs of the powers that be, and not because of them being broadly correct, scientifically correct, or even just popular.
Right. They're scared of this because it is pushing normies, as I guess you would call them, apolitical people, or traditionally sort of like, moderate, maybe slightly progressive leaning Democrats further to the left. Like during these Trump actions, like the deporting of undocumented immigrants to that El Salvadoran prison, I saw more like normie, like Democrats completely radicalized. If you look at the protests on the streets, the protests at Tesla, it's all like grandma and grandpa looking 50, 60, 70-year-olds protesting against Elon Musk and Trump. There was a profile of Zoran Mamdani. I think it was in one of the New York magazine, or one of magazine, where they come across a woman in her 60s talking to Mamdani, and they interview her after, and the quote she gives them, this isn't but this is very close to verbatim: "I never considered myself in line with like the Bernie Sanders types, but I'm seeing now that they're the only people who care about us." They are completely frightened of more people seeing that and going further left, because that is what's going to happen. And like, the left doesn't even need to do anything more than what they've always been doing. The situation we're in now with Trump is pushing them to see that what the left has always been doing is the right way. And that terrifies these people who don't want the left to win out.
And this is borne out in both polling and anecdotally when you see also the disaffection with Democratic leadership, and on issue by issue, what you're saying, Binder. And I do think that this is in part because the party not having any leaders gives this opening, right? Like, critiquing Obama from the left politically was difficult often because of people's emotional attachment to Obama and how he has and still does looms as a figure in a very large way for a lot of Democratic voters. Well, there's no leaders now, so you can't, like, if you're criticizing the favorite politicians of these people, like, that you don't create a situation where they tune out or they dismiss you as, X, Y, or Z. So the abundance guys with all their money and with all these billionaire donors are trying to fill that vacuum that they're seeing right now. But go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, what people are saying is
there's an old saying in Tennessee. I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, "Fool me once, shame on you. You fool me, we can't get fooled again."
That's what's happening with the American people right now. This is the exact same playbook that has already been run, including the exact words that they use. This is actually a tweet here I tweeted out. The group stuff is verbatim. The group stuff from Iglesias, Gentleson, etc., is verbatim reheated 90s Clintonism. Now, Matt Iglesias himself retweeted this tweet saying those were winners. You actually read this book by Nelson Lichtenstein and Judith Stein. They weren't winners. They were actually, in large part, responsible for the political hell we live in right now. As the Democratic leadership committees, these are like the centrist Democrats that would be at this sort of welcome fest now, in 1989 said, the politics of evasion, this was titled, the next Democratic nominee for president would have to, quote, convey a clear understanding of and identification with the social values and moral sentence of average Americans. And Carlson and Garmack, who wrote it, said the evasion was modern liberalism's focus. This is like Jesse Jackson type folks. Was their focus on economic fairness and its defense of the welfare state, plus the Democratic Party's dependence on, quote, interest groups. The Democratic Leadership Council never explicitly spelled out which groups these were, but it was obvious. Organized labor, the civil rights community, environmentalists, and advocates for women's rights. They called this, quote, liberal fundamentalism and rejected the idea that's all economics when it came to Democratic Party's core appeal. This was an invasion because, quote, it allows Democrats to avoid dealing with the problems of vulnerability on national defense and social issues. So we can't be the military party now. It's just them doing the same stuff that when they were like 20, 30 years younger, they watched the other freaks do, and it was successful then because we were in a different period of our economic and political history.
And it's really funny that you mentioned the groups. I just want to make sure we get to this clip, and then Brandon, feel free to weigh in here, because the abundance people talk about how the bottlenecks are caused by groups, as you're saying, like, and they are very hesitant or reticent to define what those groups are.
But we need to be really sincere about, self-introspection here, because, if we don't do it, Republicans won't.
And that leaves a lot of things open. Like, okay, so you're saying that organized labor is on the same level in terms of power as the corporations that are creating these issues? Because that's just like not borne out in fact.
Or environmentalists.
Well, here is Josh Barro on stage with Richie Torres saying the quiet part out loud.
A lot of abundance fans here today. When I look at policies in New York that stand in the way of abundance, very often if you look under the hood, you eventually find a labor union at the end that is the driver of that. I mean, to take some surprise, it is illegal to build a new hotel in New York anywhere in the city without special permission from the City Planning Commission. This is a law that was lobbied for by the Hotel Workers Union and has had the intended effect of shielding existing hotels from competition, driving up hotel rates. City's also basically banned Airbnb.
Good.
You talk about the expensive subway.
Wait, what?
On the operating side, you have a
So one thing you need to understand about Josh Barro, and I hope he sees this, is cut back. He is a nobody. He doesn't have anything real to his resume. Who he is the son of a Harvard libertarian economist who is also a Hoover Institution fellow. And the only times he's ever been relevant to my life is when for some reason he's placed on a podcast for some sort of ideological balance, basically DEI for conservatives. Or it's him coming out with some bullshit like this, which is, what your community needs is Airbnb.
Airbnb has devastated housing, like devastated it.
Communities, I've seen this on TikTok, like communities that are like suburban communities, when a house goes on the market, the neighbors will put up signs saying, not welcome Airbnb.
Right.
Nobody buy this if you're just going to turn it into a fucking Airbnb.
Does Paris have abundance? How about London? I mean, London has a crisis too, but they responded by banning Airbnb because of that crisis. New York is just like following suit in that area.
Yeah.
Do you guys think if you go to Coachella and you spend like tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, you get a wristband, you get to go to like a pool party and like all you can drink drinks. Do you think the Welcome Fest, there's like a jacuzzi somewhere with like Richie Torres and Josh Sparrow and the Walmart kids yucking it up and talking about how much they hate labor unions?
I do not.
That's a toxic soup right there.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brandon.
No, I was going to say earlier is that a lot of people, especially Democrats who are pro-neoliberal, like to conflate the success that America experienced under Clinton to Clinton's policies. And like a lot of that was just like a lot of money sloshing around as a result of like the first internet bubble really coming into impact and a big tech boom and just lots of money slashing around, where like the actual policies that Clinton put into place, like, some of them maybe contributed to a larger GDP, but a lot of that was concentrated in the hands of like the uber wealthy then too. And then the deregulation that he set into motion, like, with Greenspan, it just led to the 2008 housing crisis. It was just a straight line to that. So like we just live, as Matt was saying, in an entirely different economic time. And, the liberalism that they're trying to pitch just requires there to be broad, or at least for people to perceive there to be broad economic abundance or broad economic opportunity that is just no longer perceived to be the case. And it's just not the reality of what people are experiencing anymore. And so this kind of liberalism is just not popular anymore. It doesn't speak to people's material conditions. It doesn't even speak to people's material conditions as well as the far right does, because at least they acknowledge that the problem runs a little bit deeper than like, zoning regulations. This is a handout to, big realtors. This is a handout to big, like, I'm the production companies, but big developing companies and stuff like that. Yeah, developers, not to people who need housing, not to people who need like jobs or anything like that.
I mean, real estate associations are like the underreported interest group that drives so much policy.
Lords of creation.
Yeah. I mean, I get the Politico Playbook newsletter, and it was like last week or something like that, sponsored by the National Association of Realtors. Usually you'll see like ExxonMobil up there or something like that, but they have significant sway. It's also behind a lot of the crime panic in cities because real estate associations are worried about the values of their properties.
I just want to...
I mean, that's one of the reasons, that's one of the main reasons, if not really the main reason, at least in New York City, I think it was the main reason why remote work so quickly ended after the COVID-19 pandemic, waned. People think like, oh, people took advantage, and they're all, of course, wanting to blame workers. Fits right in with abundance, I guess, right? But no, the reason is, at least in New York City, this was reported, the real estate companies, the owners of these buildings, were complaining that the companies who were renting from them were not going to continue renting from them because they were going to go to remote. And then the businesses that basically set up the shops who opened for lunch and stuff were complaining that they couldn't pay their rent because they had set up specifically to be by office buildings. And everyone was worried about the landlords and where would they rent to if everyone was working remotely. And the mayor got involved and wanted everyone going back to work. And all these companies got together and said, oh, we got to get everyone back to work. It was all because of the landlords, the owners of these big office buildings. I mean, it's ridiculous.
San Francisco, it's happening. New mayor is also doing the same thing right now, and it's the same exact moneyed reasoning behind it.
I just want to take back what I said about Josh Barro, that he never had accomplished anything in his life, because we should just play the rest of this clip, because what he did accomplish here is make sure Richie Torres is going to have a tough time getting any union endorsements on a statewide level.
That is a beautiful thing, actually.
That's
why he's courting Musk.
Crews to drive subway trains, which is done almost nowhere else in the world. On the capital side, it's the construction trade unions that have imposed a lot of practices that drive up cost. We have a law that is supposed to drive the production of new housing, privately built housing in New York City, that was amended at the behest of those construction trades to create union set-asides that have greatly increased the cost to deliver housing under that program and reduce the production. Is there a way to have a pro-abundance Democratic Party agenda in New York without breaking the strong link that exists between the New York Democratic Party and the labor movement?
I don't think so.
I do not blame the groups. I blame the elected officials. I think we, the elected officials, should
not good enough.
Everyone should have a seat at the table. Everyone's voice should be heard, but no one's going to have veto power. And we're no longer going to pursue policies that manufacture.
What about Zionists?
I think that's the burden of elected officials.
All right, whatever. I don't care.
I think this is just so transparently not aimed at voters and aimed at like donors of very specific industries, like the real estate industry, like, you know, commercial and domestic developers of houses. And, you know, just a handful of other industry leaders who are just looking for deregulation, that even just the way they speak about it, I can't imagine just being like a normal person who listens to this, like, yeah, how do we get like, you know, housing deregulated and labor unions paid less in order to, you know, build more like shit, like essentially, like, you know, it's like that's just not the problem, obviously.
I mean, I actually do think it's targeted at regular voters and regular people, but not in the way that, but specifically to turn them a further right wing and to believe these things that are incorrect.
Yeah,
like they're set like people in this country have been set up to believe that if something related to the government is inefficient in some way, it's because of government bureaucracy or because of the labor unions, you know, with their contracts and stuff. They never are taught to blame lobbyists or the corporations who muddy the waters and try to get things and waste time to get things in their way. It's always the fault of government agencies, government set up to help you, and the labor unions, which are meant to protect workers. And and this whole project seems to further enforce that. Like, listen, I don't know how it is elsewhere in the country. I'm not an expert in that specific area in terms of like build housing, and I'm not a NIMBY. I think building more housing is good, but these things aren't alone. Like I am seeing here in New York City, where I can be an expert because I've lived here my entire life. I am seeing. And I live in Queens, in an area that is being heavily invested in right now, and large buildings are going up left and right. And it's the most probably city-like area, one of the most city-like areas of Queens, closest to Manhattan, like Manhattan, I should say. And many buildings are going up, residential areas, large, many stories. The affordable housing that's put in there is thousands and thousands of dollars, like studio apartments starting at $3,000-$4,000. That is not affordable. It is not affordable. That's not, so just building more things isn't going to lead to more affordable housing, as we're seeing what's happening. These same companies are being given the ability to build, and they're continuing to drive prices up because they know who to target to get the people in there, or they'll just leave the affordable housing open. They don't care. They make enough money from the rich, wealthy people who come in and buy up the housing anyway.
Yeah, well, that's a great point. I was just pointing out that I think the language they use is alienating to people who even could be driven towards believing more deregulatory narratives about what's causing the problems in society. And the only thing I would add to your point too is that like they're trying to make them even less affordable because they're trying to remove organized labor jobs from the workforce, essentially, which will just mean that people are paid less for building these places, which will ultimately mean that like wages are suppressed throughout other industries as well, because we know as organized labor are, you know, argued or, you know, advocates for higher wages in their industry and for their workers, it rises wages up throughout other sectors as well. Like, you know, they're just trying to make it less affordable, but just by driving down the wages. So you'll have more houses, but less money.
Right.
I just want to make one point about, you know, we said this thing about the unions. Derek Thompson and Ezra Klein don't actually come for unions in the book. I mean, in their acknowledgments, a lot of the people they acknowledge definitely are anti-union, but they don't make the argument that Barrow does in the thing. But the point I want to make about that is these book tours and the media tours around them are as important as the actual content of the book. Because, and I would also say that, and I hesitated to make this comparison before, but now that they're coming for unions, it needs to be said. Charles Murray in The Bell Curve, the Bell Curve has plenty to object to in terms of like the science and the studies that it cites. But more careful they were in that book than when they would go on the media tour and talk about IQ and stuff like that outside of the context of what they publish. And the Josh Shapiro example with I-95, Josh Shapiro goes out of his way to say we worked with all these trade unions around the clock and we got it done. And also Barrow has no, just like any other supporter of American capitalism, or I would just reduce that to dumbass libertarian, has no conception of the world outside the United States, where Japan, France, all these countries have much higher union density and yet are able to do these things in a way that we aren't.
Yeah, that's a great point. All right, let's read some IMs. I guess Ro Khanna responded to my tweet. People are IMing him about him. We'll take one more call and then maybe just pull that up. It was pretty hilarious, actually. All right. One more call. Calling from a 908 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 908?
Hi, is this me?
This is you. You're the final caller of the day.
Hi, this is Pat from Jersey. I don't know if you remember me. I called back around January and suggested Democrats run on a message of jail a billionaire.
Yeah. I mean, love it.
I feel like that aged pretty well.
Yeah, I think so.
I just wanted to first comment on the whole Elon Musk thing. It is infuriating that Democrats are a party that is looking to take the Republicans' worst, like somebody that they extricated because he's so wildly unpopular, and we're looking to take him on now. It genuinely boggles the mind.
Right, that's actually a really good point. I mean, think of that. Oh, this guy is really hated by the public. We want him on our side.
No, it's literally like we're like, oh, look at that rat that is fleeing that sinking ship. Let's go swim alongside it.
Let's go make it our pet and then show everybody how clean we are. Like
this rat I got.
Yeah.
Perfect segue to the tweet, by the way.
I know. Well, appreciate the call,
You know
Pat.
I could have
Thank you. Oh, wait.
Real quick,
Hold on, Dinder.
I just wanted to plug. So over here in New Jersey, obviously everybody get out and vote, but also they are wrapping up the final budget for the next fiscal year. So part of that process is try and get some bills passed. There is a big push to get something called the Climate Superfund Act passed. So if anybody is in New Jersey, please call up your representative and urge them to support it. For anyone who's not familiar, it's literally just fossil fuel companies would have to pay into a fund to basically pay for our climate resiliency infrastructure.
Nice. And are you on the Ross Baraka train too?
So I understand that he's been endorsed by the Working Families Party, and also I know Progressive Victory has recently gotten behind him. I've actually, because I'm a transit advocate, I've been a big Fulop supporter, so I've been backing him and some of his candidates, but I like Roz as well. So
seems like Roz has the best chance. I mean, I remember doing some reporting back in the day about his failures with Newark's tainted water that I need to go revisit and see, how complicit he was in it. But anyway, appreciate the call. Thanks so much, Pat.
Thanks.
That's just normal New Jersey water.
Yeah. It's tan water. So I guess just to I just can't believe the dude is so thirsty for attention. It's unbelievable. Ro Khanna responded to me. He's always, he likes.
I'll credit him for that, though. I want my Congress people in the mud with me on social media.
But it just, I mean, look, we get pitches from politicians a lot to come on our show. Sometimes we say yes, sometimes we say no. It seems like he likes to go do media. Like, he reminds me of Nancy Mace, but for like the Democrats. If Biden had a big supporter criticize him, Trump would have hugged him the next day. When we refused to meet with Robert Kennedy Jr., Trump embraced him and won. We can be the party of sanctimonious lectures. Oh boy. Or the party of FDR that knows how to win and build a progressive majority.
Wait,
okay,
that's
so
even a worse
RFK
example. I don't want RFK Jr. on my side either.
I know.
No. Also, RFK Jr. is not a billionaire, and this is a class war.
And he's not for Medicare for all. The reason RFK works for their coalition, and I mean, Rose says it's for Medicare for all, so I'll grant him that. But RFK and that whole health movement is a simulation of policy to obscure what we actually need, which is single payer or decomodifying healthcare. RFK's position is that there's all these poisons and everyone's getting so fat that it's going to cost rich people like him too much money. That's really all it comes down to.
Yeah.
Also,
on air, I'm going to literally respond right now with the image of the Nazi salute. So people keep talking. Take this dumbass to task.
No, I think Russell going right.
Yeah, sorry to jump in, but it's also worth pointing out that like Elon Musk's whole issue with Donald Trump's bill is Elon Musk is like embracing like Milton Friedman style austerity and wants to cut government and cut all of the programs we believe in. So on what basis would we ally with him? Like to do what?
Right.
He's retweeting like the Freedom Caucus people who are upset that the cuts aren't even bigger. Yeah.
Yeah. Like they're arguing over like it not hurting enough people, but this from the Democrats is just an attempt to ensure that there's no such thing as bad money in our political system. They want you to believe that money, no matter who you take it from, is a virtue, that you should always be willing to take money. And I think we have to problematize that very idea of money not coming with strings attached in our political system, which has been popularized by both parties. This idea that, oh, you can take money from anybody. It doesn't mean you're going to help them, which is ridiculous on its face and has been proven to be ridiculous time and time again. But it's something that Trump constantly gestures to all the time when he takes a $400 million plane from Qatar, when he does like crypto dinners, when he takes money from, he goes like, he doesn't even have to explain it anymore. He just goes like, well, it doesn't mean I'm going to do anything for them. And it's because the Democrats have adopted that belief too, where it's like, I remember when they were the party of we got to get money out of politics. And then there became a lot more Silicon Valley money sloshing around in their coffers. And they were like, well, maybe money isn't such a bad thing after all. But Elon Musk is proof positive of the belief or the reality that like some money, it has a cost and it's cost more than it's worth to you. And this is what the Democratic Party wants you to avoid. They want you to think that all money is
Citizens United. Oh, sorry, but but like this is what we've been talking about with Citizens United. This is we are at this like moment where since Citizens United, the amount of dark money, the amount of billionaire money in our politics, you can track it year over year. It has exploded to the point that this guy helped buy the presidency. He helped buy the presidency. And you have Ro Khanna, who positions himself as a progressive that's also, going to David Sachs fundraisers and sucking up to Elon Musk money and missing subpoena votes and then saying, oh, I mixed up my calendar. It's the Politico reporter that got it wrong to subpoena Elon Musk. And then openly is thirsting for his money on the internet and pretending like, oh, this must be such a coincidence. What a dishonest guy. The other thing that's just like really important to point out here is that this actually is an ideological like sibling of the Democrats going after Taco Trump. Right, where it's like where they're saying
Adam Gentleson. Folks.
Trump always chickens out. Taco Trump, he's not going to get tough on Iran like what Chuck Schumer was doing. So when you say that, when you're daring him or trolling him or taking out the stupid ass taco truck, what you are basically saying is, we dare you to do what you're going to do. And what's the next step in that logic? If we dare you to do what you want to do and you do it, that must mean it's not that horrible. That must mean it's not that extreme.
Or even
that
if it
must
is,
mean that it's not that harmful, which is the undercutting of your argument against your political opponent. And then it's the same thing with Elon Musk. Oh, we can welcome him back into our orbit. He must not be that bad. Billionaires must not be that bad. Department of Government Efficiency must not be that bad. Nazis must not be that bad. The AfD in Germany must not be that bad. South African apartheid must not be that bad.
There might be a white genocide in South Africa, though.
Yeah, the white genocide conspiracy theory, the Great Replacement theory might not be that bad.
Transphobia.
It's okay to foment hate against trans. Yes, that's like Musk's number one. You're absolutely
it's pathetic.
on point, Emma.
Pathetic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I just want to add one thing. Like, I actually am someone who does think like if maybe that someone it would only happen once, but someone gives money to your campaign or something, and you're just like, oh, I hate this guy. I'm going to use it and not give him a favor. But the thing is, we've seen time and time again that every single politician, Republican or Democrats, do give the favors to the people who give them money. So like this whole idea of you could take money and not be bought by them, even if you believe it's true, I've yet to see it actually play out that way.
Yeah.
I mean, they're trying to convince you it's true. And they're also trying to convince you that money shouldn't have a cost, because clearly taking money from Elon is not good and people lose when they do it. But they don't want that to be true, because they want as much money as they can get, because the consultants have invoices. The contractors have invoices. Everyone needs to get a taste when the Democratic Party is coming into power. And it's easier when they can take money from anybody and they don't have to explain it to people. But it does have a cost. We've seen that it has a cost. They're trying to change it so it doesn't. And that doesn't really benefit anybody except for the people who are taking the money from billionaires directly.
Yep.
Yeah. Elon Musk is no longer following Charlie Kirk.
Oh, there's gonna be a complete blowback from Elon. Don't be surprised if all of a sudden you have conservatives crying that their tweets are more so than just cat turd. Conservatives crying that their tweets aren't getting as much engagement as they used to. You're gonna see it.
Oh, it's gonna be so sweet.
New poll from Elon. Is it time to create a new political party that actually represents the 80% in the middle?
Oh my God. Elon Musk becoming the new Andrew Yang is exactly where this was always headed, right?
No, this would be fantastic because this would all just be right wingers who with the party. Yes.
What is in the water with the California Democrats? Like someone wrote in Manu Raju, clearly not really. Roe is so jank pilled, holy shit. But like it's also Gavin Newsom pilled. They're all doing this stuff out in California about like we got to be talking to Steve Bannon and Elon Musk and all of these Nazis. Like I think they're all talking to the same consultants. I wouldn't be shocked.
They want them so bad. They want the Democratic Party to have that market cornered so badly, and they see it, right? Because this last election might be horrible for democracy and world history, but they were close. They almost won it with sending Richie Torres to fucking Michigan. They almost had it. It was right there for them. They're not going to give up now.
It really is just so silly because like their central premise is like laughable when it's applied to guns, but they truly believe that the only way to be a bad billionaire is with a good billionaire. Like that, that's the new like Democratic Party like marketing and strategy, and it's not appealing to really anybody. But like, by God, they're going to try to make it work.
Oh, and here's a message to Trump, by the way. If anyone in Trump's orbit is watching this while we're talking about the Elon Trump breakup, if you really want to hurt Elon, it's not the EV tax credit. He doesn't care about that. In fact, he said he's fine with it going away. You guys are wrong there. If you really want to hurt Elon, it's the regulatory carbon credits. Get rid of those if you really want to hurt Elon. Please do it. He would be so upset. You can single-handedly take away all of Elon's billions if you get rid of the regulatory carbon credits. Think about how ridiculous it is. If the companies who claim to be green, who claim to care about climate change, get these credits for free, and then sell them to other companies so that they can pollute.
Yep. It would hurt those companies too. Like it would be, we could double dip. We could go after big oil and we could go after Elon.
So Stephen Miller, whoever from the Trump orbit scours the internet to see every sort of mention of Trump and Elon or whatever. If you really want to hurt Elon Musk, if you want revenge for the best president in my lifetime, you will go after the carbon credit, okay? Take them away, boys.
Take them away.
The best is yet to come.
Okay.
Jeff Bezos came, Bill Gates came, Mark Zuckerberg came.
Elon Musk not invited.
No.
No, it's my birthday.
No.
That sounds like a fun jacuzzi party.
I don't know. You're insisting on putting that image in everyone's head here, and
many of them came numerous times. The bankers have all come. Everybody's coming.
The progressives are actually regressives.
God did
Brandon
that.
called it a toxic soup.
Yeah, right. Lots of smells. Okay, hanging up the phone. Gonna read some items and get out of here, I think. Cole from Michigan. Elon Musk had to eat the cookie. Yeah, I know. I get this. This is Sam's favorite joke, not my favorite.
I forget about that.
Russ is enjoying it, but Matt and I are people of taste.
Is that like a Gen X thing?
I don't.
Because I've never heard of that.
I'm
outside of this program.
Never heard it.
Outside
never
of being
heard
on
it.
the clock at work, I've never heard of that.
No.
Wait, what are you guys talking about? I missed it.
Nothing.
Nothing.
We can't talk about it.
It's a gross joke about
glazing a cookie.
Yes.
Oh.
And then eating it.
Has Elon met with any of those like South African refugees? I just remembered that they like came in from South Africa. Like he should start his political party with them.
He's letting them stay at his compound.
Yeah.
Yeah, all 49 of them.
Are you fertile?
These are all 6s and 7s.
Yeah.
What's if speaking of that, I don't see anyone talking about it in that that New York Times report about. I see one talking about the New York Times report about Elon's drug use, but there's a one line in there that I saw dropped in that I've yet to hear anyone talk about, and I'd never heard it before. Apparently, Elon Musk has claimed to his people close to him that he has a child with a Japanese pop star out there. I would love to know what's going on there.
He could very easily be making that up.
Yeah.
I don't know if he has one with a Japanese pop star. I don't really believe that, but I do believe Elon has a lot more children out there than we've been informed about. Not that it matters, but I would put it at least 50.
Yeah, I'd bet on both of those things.
I don't know. Some of those people are really weird and want to be close with him. We've already seen it, but there's a ton of women out there who are very weird about being with him because he's rich, he's powerful. You know,
Oblivion was such a good song too.
Aaron from Germany, I love how the abundance people completely overinflate the amount of power environmental groups in the green energy industry have. Do they intentionally just ignore their influence is nothing compared to that of realtor and fossil fuel industries?
It's a lie.
The answer is yes, Aaron. They do just deliberately ignore that.
It's like Nixon saying a lot of Watergate happened with Nixon being like, actually, LBJ was bugging me. And part of the reason that the FBI was interested in Nixon when he was running on the campaign trail was because he was conducting secret talks with South Vietnam, telling them to keep the war going.
Right.
And he'd give them a better deal. So there's actually good reason for that. But the paranoia served the purpose for everybody in that administration when they're talking about it, being like, well, we're actually not the ones. Never mind that we're breaking into Daniel Ellsberg's fucking psychiatrist's office and talking about firebombing Brookings Institution. We're actually the ones who have been put upon and oppressed.
Yeah.
And so we're the actual underdogs fighting against it. It's very useful psychologically. Nobody wants to be like, we're actually the bad guys running up the score on people less powerful than us. You always want to come at it from actually, we're just fighting back against, for righteousness.
Penny in New Mexico says Airbnb is also being boycotted by BDS. Good point. Richie's very against Airbnb being banned. V says, Emma, I'm not sure it's accurate to say that medical students with the most debt go into private practice, but the callers point that they are diverted away from lower paying specialties like pediatrics and family medicine. Fair enough if I phrase it incorrectly. Most of my wife's residency colleagues who have been in debt actually rely on public service loan forgiveness, where they have their loans forgiven after 10 years of working in eligible positions, usually working at an academic or nonprofit. Okay, well, I mean, I read somewhere that like there are like half of medical students who have debt that's like over 150K. Okay. I mean,
there's too many bankers between people in education. I don't think that's you can't argue with that.
I mean, the American Medical Association, about 70% of medical students per AAMC data graduated medical school with some student debt in 2023. The average debt in 2023 is $202,453. About 50% of medical students graduated with loan debt that was more than 150K. So I'm not sure about and then there is a public service loan forgiveness program. Agree with what you're saying overall, like about, I hear that will count towards it. But I'm sorry, like that level of debt still funnels people towards more expensive work, or work that's going to pay them better. But
I mean, there's an NPR piece. I mean, all I know about public service loan forgiveness is that it's not actually, like, it's a bureaucratic nightmare. NPR 2018, why public service loan forgiveness is so unforgiving. I mean, many student borrowers have responded to this story by sharing their stories of their struggles with PSLF. So yeah, that's not really that much of a saving grace in my opinion.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say overall, I think we just have to understand that the Trump administration and then also the Republicans' assault on public education and funding for like grants that low-income people use in order to become educated at higher institutions, it's just an assault on economic mobility. It's an assault on any pathway people who are born into poverty or the lower class might have in towards like gaining some type of financial security, because America is not enough of a socioeconomic caste system for the Republicans. People aren't precarious enough, people aren't stuck in their conditions enough for Republicans. They want you to be even harder pressed to get out of any negative circumstances you find yourself in, despite the fact they're always talking about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps or making something of yourself. They create conditions where it makes it impossible.
Yeah, and I mean, all this stuff about economic populism is such a lie. Here's Jimmy Williams, general president of the IUPAT union, talking about these cuts. Job Corps, the cuts to the Job Corps just across the country. Job Corps partners with unions like ours to provide training, education, and housing to low-income students all across the United States. Gutting Job Corps harms people who need support the most. Call your elected leaders to officials today to save Job Corps. Jimmy writes, I had the chance to meet Jeremiah. What an inspiration. These are the stories that need to be told about what the administration is doing to hurt everyday Americans who just want a chance to succeed in the economy. Can we just play this for a little second?
Sure.
Because I feel like this is something worth covering.
Yeah.
When I think about Job Corps getting shut down, I really feel a sense of loss, because that is a program that has helped me tremendously and helped some of my peers tremendously as well. I feel like it's a very big missed opportunity for so many people, because I was once in that position of needing all like the basic needs to have a job, but instead of a job, I actually got a career, and I feel like people are really going to miss out on that big opportunity. I benefited greatly from the housing for Job Corps. I was there on campus the whole year that I was living there. There's food, there's also therapy and wellness, and there's rec centers, and you can, interact with people. It's not like you're just there at school all day. But when I actually went there, my whole perspective shifted. I ended up getting not only one high school degree, but I got 2 high school degrees. I got my trade, I got my certifications, OSHA 10. I got my driver's license, and I got everything that I needed to not only get a job, but a career as well. I didn't take as much action.
I mean, you get the point. And it's so disgraceful to see people like Josh Hawley plugging Trump's administration as if, oh yeah, he's resetting the economy for working people. No, this is kicking down ladders that are actually there. And that, frankly, the media class isn't aware of, because how many people in media will have any interaction with something like Job Corps in their life?
Yeah.
Very small percentage.
Yep. Okay. Forced majority report, still over $100,000 in debt for medical school. You're right, Emma. Okay, thank you. Felonious friend. Elon is not an evil genius. He's an evil dumbass who stumbled into money. Trump and Musk, 2 nasty peas in the pod.
Elon's just like one of many guys who placed the right bet on something called PayPal 25 years ago.
Yeah, and also like he's Elizabeth Holmes, but he just didn't get caught, basically. I mean, so many of his promises are lies in a similar way that she lied. Live, laugh, Luigi. Andrew Yang responded to Elon's poll, relatively unsurprised by who wants to associate with a Nazi. Noah from Tampa. Clinton got extremely lucky. There was a conservative revolt against Bush Sr. that caused a libertarian independent candidate to run and get 20 million votes. Yeah, 100%. Without Ross Perot, Clinton would have never been a thing.
And there was some level of also Republican fatigue after a decade plus of them in the White House.
Yeah. Just another guy. Even my dad, who's a lifelong standard Democrat, is like, Bernie was right. Okay, 3 more. Majority Report Wardrobe Coordinator. How dare you refuse to read my IM? I want a commitment to visit Florida for the next MR Live show, or you're an anti-Florida and Florida phobic. Do you support Florida's right to exist as a ruby red state?
I would love to go to Miami for a live show.
Oh my God.
I'm trying to go to Miami.
Yes.
I am anti-Florida.
I want to go
I
to
am
Florida.
anti-Florida.
I'm anti-Florida.
I'm
pro-Miami.
Pro-Miami.
Yeah, Miami isn't really Florida or the United States. It's
some
kind
fun
of
times in Miami.
Yep, for sure. Davey 9000. I feel that the taco premise underscores the erratic, underthought nature of Trump's policy as opposed to an explicit endorsement. Maybe it's a bit cringe, but it does get under his skin. I totally disagree.
That doesn't mean anything, though. Why do we, everything gets under his skin? The thing is, we don't need to get under his skin. We need to disempower him politically.
Yeah, exactly.
Like driving him insane. Again, like the chicken's out on tariffs. I hope he fucking does. I'm much happier that he's going to meet with Xi Jinping. Is he being a chicken by picking up the phone and talking with Xi? I don't like that. Like, I don't people need to stop viewing this as if you're like annoying your sibling.
Yeah.
In the car on a road trip or something.
The politics of pettiness have taken over America because people can't aspire to anything more. So like so much of our politics is just like, juvenile trolling now. So
and who benefits from that environment the most?
Right.
The number one troll. The number one troll is going to win in a troll off. Are you kidding me?
We make fun of them for doing all you care about is triggering the libs.
Yeah. And the final I am of the day. Mike from Texas, as a former regular consumer of conservative talk radio, I can tell you that sounded very familiar. Quote, Democrats are beholden to the evil unions.
Josh Barro is a Republican.
Yeah. Well, anyway, guys, good show today. Really appreciate everybody and all of their input and voice. And my buddies over there, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just...
The buddies.
My buddies saying goodbye, signing off. Russ, Matt, Binder, and Brandon. Thank you, guys. We will see you all tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I guess somewhere the choice was made for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive between the 101 and the 5. Do you know how far the detour takes you? Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. The months drifted into years while I shifted